All right, what's going on? Drive time, Monday afternoon, about 11 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. It's a mild day outside. It's kind of warm for a December Monday as we are high speed ahead to Christmas. But as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. That's Porter Larson behind the glass. Got a jam-packed Monday show. If I sound like I'm a little bit under the weather, it's because I'm dealing with a sinus infection and has been for a couple of weeks. But I'm not sick. I'm not one of those guys that shows up to work sick. Nobody likes that guy or gal or they, whatever the thing is these days. Nobody likes that person who shows up to work sick. That's not me. But if I sound like the sinus thing is still a thing, it is. But we're going to get through it, man. We got 4 hours of radio to do prior to Monday Night Football tonight. There's a double dip of Monday Night Football tonight. You're going to hear the Craig Smith Coaches Show after we say goodnight. Then the game we have on our station is the Falcons and the Raiders. So the ever-changing landscape of pro football, and this weekend, the Sunday slate, a lot of overreaction, as we are wont to do on a Monday. But the latest on Patrick Mahomes, his high ankle sprain, more bad news for the Detroit Lions. And, you know, I'm not going to say it's wide open, but the Vegas odds tell us there are 4 or 5 teams that are legitimately still in the mix to win the Super Bowl. So we got the Bears and the Vikings. That's your early game. That takes place at 6 o'clock on ABC and ESPN from US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. Minnesota, a healthy 7-point favorite in that game. Then Atlanta's getting 6 in the hook on the road at Allegiant against the Raiders. So we'll talk some pro football. A lot of local guys making plays over the weekend. We have a NFL football player on our radio show today. Huh? How about that on a Monday afternoon? So happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. The weather was pretty warm after that storm we had. Apparently there were some people out on the golf course, 50-degree weather on a Saturday. According to my guy Chase over at KUTV, my go-to for weather options, we might be in for a white Christmas if you're into such things. Might have some snow around the holidays. So a lot to get to on the show. The latest with the transfer portal in college football. 20 Utes find themselves in the transfer portal. I believe it's 6 players from Brigham Young right now in the transfer portal looking for a new place to play. Bronco Mendenhall at Utah State, Jason Beck, and a couple of others, former BYU players, rounding out that Utah coaching staff. And what's next in the landscape of college football? Of course, we still have games to talk about. Wish we had a Utah football game to talk about, but we don't. So we have Utah offseason to talk about. The idiocy of having the transfer portal open while there are CFP games ahead, while there are bowl games ahead, too. Mostly CFP. I mean, these programs are playing for national championships. And what did I say a couple of weeks ago about programs that are still in the CFP potentially suffering from the ability players have to leave for the transfer portal? It was going to happen because you have to have your name in prior to the 28th. And the earlier you have your name in, the earlier you have options to potentially figure out where you're going to play next. Could Michael Vick be back in football? He's interviewing for the Norfolk State head coaching job. So a lot of fun college football storylines to get to. BYU, Colorado, Alamo Bowl, San Antonio on the 28th. BYU will be playing against the Heisman Trophy winner. Feels like Travis Hunter locked that up a number of weeks ago. And potentially against the number 1 pick in the NFL draft in Shedeur Sanders. So BYU has a really fun bowl game we'll get to. Of course, there are basketball storylines, pro basketball storylines, college basketball storylines. The Caitlin Clark stuff over the weekend, I really don't understand this. And I'm not going to – I hate to be that guy, but I've been around the WNBA since 1997. Shout out New York Liberty, Teaspoon. And the fact that this league has finally found some footing and they're biting the hand that feeds us is ridiculous. And it just continues from ownership all the way down to these players on the roster. Yes, are there talented players that probably deserve more credit? Sure. Is there a racial component to this? Maybe. But why are we leaning into that? And so I have some thoughts on that we'll get to at some point. But college football, NFL, NBA action. The NBA Cup, baby. High speed ahead. At least we have a good matchup. It's going to be OKC and Milwaukee. My question is, did you even know? Did you even know? Probably not. So we'll do some Jazz. We'll do some NBA. A lot of trade conversations happening right now. The latest up from Jeremy Wu on Cooper Flagg, hopefully future Jazz man, because all this pain has to breed something at some point. So, good guest list on the show today. We'll start things off with the voice of the Utes, the voice of the University of Utah, former Middling Midday radio host here on this radio station. Bill Riley stops by. Little birdie tells me Bill's going to launch a new podcast coming up, so Ute fans, stay tuned for that info. If you miss our guy on middays, Bill's going to stop by today. Tom Haberstroh, little NBA. Do some Jazz, do some NBA Cup. Maybe do some Cooper Flagg with Tom today. AJ DeBanza was in the market over the weekend playing the Holiday Hoop Fest. I think that's what they called it. He looked awesome because he's really good at basketball. I referenced an NFL player. How about Garrett Bowles? Played his college ball at Utah, just signed a brand spanking new 4-year extension with the Broncos. My man's going to make another $40+ million guaranteed money and hopefully more in some bonuses if he stays healthy and continues to play well along that offensive line. So excited to catch up with friend of the show, Garrett Bowles, today. Shout out to my guy McKinley for making that happen. Josh Furlong, KSL, covers the University of Utah. He's been all over it with the coaching staff, the talent acquisition, the transfer portal, and such. So a lot of football, pro football, college football on the show today on this Monday with Bill Riley, Tom Haberstroh, Garrett Bowles, Josh Furlong, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners on a Monday. And that guy, Porter Larson, produces the show. So how's the voice holding up so far? We've got about 8 minutes, and I'm hanging in. We doing all right?
I think you sound fine.
How are you feeling?
I feel great.
What'd you do over the weekend?
I watched some rodeo.
Is that why you're wearing that? What is that shirt? What is that?
This is just a free bucked up supplements. We used to have the sponsorship, remember?
BCAAs.
Maybe get us, hey, bucked up.
Yeah,
send me some more free supplements and shirts.
Yeah, don't say their name on air if they're not a partner anymore.
Hey, you brought it up.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, you ready to do 4 hours of radio?
I am ready.
Okay.
Football, CFP. We can get to the rodeo if you want to. A lot to get to though.
Wait. Just to be clear, which rodeo? Because for me, there's only one rodeo. That's the Oakley Rodeo on July 4th.
My guy. Well, the path to December in Las Vegas leads through Oakley, of course. I was down in Vegas for the NFR final night. It was fun.
You went to Vegas this weekend?
Last minute, yeah, I did.
Did you behave yourself?
Mostly. It was quick Vegas trip, family on the way.
All right.
That was the main goal, but yeah.
Did you throw cards?
No.
Okay.
I veer away from those areas as much as I can.
That's probably smart. All right, our first guest right out of the gates on this Monday afternoon will be one Bill Riley, voice of the Utes. But before we get to Riles, courtesy of our good friends at Standard Restaurant Supply, your tailgate headquarters. Get everything you need to make your tailgate epic. Check them out online at standardrestaurant.com or stop by their location at 3500 South West Temple. On a Monday afternoon, it's time now for your opening tip. So some interesting stuff over the weekend, and we talked about this with a couple of our NBA guests last week, and the trends continue, and the data is in that there are a number of people who, according to the data that we have, the ratings that we have, that once upon a time were watching NBA basketball, that are no longer watching NBA basketball. And this time of year, we talked to Dave McMenamin about this last week. You know, if you're a average Joe NBA fan, you're probably not tuned in till Christmas or after. And a lot of that has to do with us becoming an absolute insane football country. We kind of always have been. But everything that most prognosticators have predicted that would get in the way for NFL football simply has never really proven itself to be an issue. And ultimately, as I've always said, I feel like football, but the NFL specifically, more so than college, and the data that we have is you guys are watching a lot of NFL football, and you're also watching a lot of college football. NFL is still king, college football right behind it. And then you get into the space of where the NBA ratings are right now, juxtaposed to a little bit of a bump for Major League Baseball, actually, which was interesting to read over the weekend. And also the market share that soccer has kind of taken away. It's not a big piece, but soccer and hockey find themselves close to even. Soccer has made some inroads over the past little bit. I know most soccer people believe that the World Cup being in our region coming up in a few years will help. Well, we've heard that every time the World Cup was around. And ultimately, whether the World Cup was here way back in the day in the 90s or we actually have a World Cup team that shows pretty well, data says we have this incremental bump, and then soccer essentially comes back down to where it typically is, even though it has grown. But the NBA is finding itself really behind the curve. The last time the NBA, well, two different scenarios here. Sports Business Journal had a really interesting piece over the weekend. The last time the NBA was like legitimately throwing punches with the NFL was the 90s, was the Michael Jordan bump. The highest rated basketball game of all time played in Salt Lake City. Did you know that? Game 7, Jordan shot to beat the Utah Jazz and sent him on to his 6th NBA championship and a truncated retirement before he came back as a shell of himself with the Washington Wizards at the time. And even though the NFL in the 90s did have a bump, the NBA showed growth, okay? Then the growth kind of flattened. The NFL continued to grow incrementally. Over the past 5-6 years, the NFL has this massive boom right now. But when Steph kind of started Stephing, and it was Steph and LeBron and the Warriors and the Cavs, or the Heat and the Warriors, that's when the NBA received another bit of a bump on linear networks where you thought maybe this will last. It very much has not. And the reasons, I think, are plentiful. Ultimately, around here, the data has always been interesting to me. When the Mitchell and Gobert Quinn team had their best seasons, our market was number 2 nationally for local ratings. We were behind the Warriors. Golden State was 1. The Jazz were 2. So that showed you that you guys were watching a lot of Jazz basketball. It didn't necessarily show you or show us that you're watching a lot of NBA basketball. And I've always wondered aloud, are we an NBA market or are we a Jazz market? Are we a basketball market or like what exactly does that look like? And basketball is part of the DNA of the state. I mean, there, as I often talk about, there is a gym in every church. And even if you didn't grow up and have a chance to play high school basketball or AAU basketball, you probably played basketball. It was one of the interesting things I noticed about playing basketball in the Northeast and playing basketball out here. Like, everybody kind of knows how to play because you probably grew up playing in a church on some level. So I do think there's love for the game of basketball. I think there's interest when our local basketball products are interesting and compelling. I was told by somebody locally that right now the number one consumed product certainly is the college football side with our local media with Utah and BYU. Number 2 right now, BYU basketball. BYU fans love content. Of course, they have a good team this year. They have potentially a very exciting team next year with A.J. Devanza coming in. They have a top 10 recruiting class. And so if you put together a good product, our consumers have shown you in the past, they will show up to support that product. The Huntsman Center, yes, kids, gather around the fire. Once upon a time, when players like Andre Miller and Keith Van Horn and Mike Doliak and Britton Johnson, and I could keep going, were dominating the local and national, in a way, basketball scene. The Huntsman Center, kids, once upon a time, yes, was a very fun, exciting place to be. I wish it was still like that. I wish it for Craig, who I like a lot, and hope that he ultimately figures it out. But I'm finding all of the topics about why this league has suffered really interesting. And there are plenty of them to go around. And I think the number one, in my opinion, the number one reason why people have tapped out on basketball is simply more preference for football. I think the NBA has rested on its laurels as a result of some international business. Like, according to the Sports Business Journal, the 2 biggest sports in the world are soccer and basketball, okay? Soccer's 1, it's the global game, and then basketball is 2. Basketball has revenue streams overseas. Do you wonder why everybody just tightened up when Daryl Morey sent out his Hong Kong tweet? Even the most outward, front-facing NBA people kept their mouths shut during that whole thing. And it's because of the revenue that's brought in from China, and they're on their way to kind of getting that back after a couple of years of frayed relations, to say the least. And the NBA plays well in Europe in a way that football doesn't. Football has tried, and they continue to try. We see games in London. Tottenham's stadium. We've heard of the NFL London initiatives, and it's only a moment in time. Basketball makes a lot more money internationally than football does, and because of those revenue streams, I feel like the league is kind of resting on its laurels, and they don't give a rip about whether or not the domestic ratings are what they once were. Are they trying things? Sure. The NBA Cup, all right, maybe at some point people care about it, but I'm watching the NBA Cup semifinal matchups in Vegas, and it looked like a corporate crowd. Nobody was cheering. And unless the crowd in Vegas makes it feel like a March Madness game, I'm not sure that there's appetite for it. So some interesting stuff over the weekend, and the local ties certainly, if you do put a compelling product on the floor, and if you do give basketball fans around here something to cheer for, they will show up, they will consume it. Utah basketball in the 90s, BYU basketball currently, Jazz basketball more often than not, but not right now. And that's why I was at the game on Friday. That building was not even close to full. No traffic in or out. And I do think fans around here are starting to show their displeasure about where we find ourselves with the Jazz, potentially the worst team we've ever had here, and a 2.5-year rebuild that as of now does not have a lot of exciting things to look at. We'll get back to some of the stuff because I have some good guests I want to talk to here about this dynamic. Bill Riley's going to join us coming up next, but let's bring in Ken, owner and patient care coordinator from our good friends at Lifestyle Men's Health. Ken, happy Monday. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing, Spence?
I'm well. I appreciate your time. So Lifestyle Men's Health has been in my life for a little over a year now. When I met Angela Peterson, our mutual friend, she asked me a couple of questions. We did a couple of quick blood tests, and, she said you could probably benefit from some testosterone replacement therapy and some vitality peptides. Fast forward a year later, and I'm in the best shape I've been in since I probably was in my late 20s. I'm more energetic. I'm sleeping better. Those two things have really helped me. What's your experience, Ken, been like with Lifestyle Men's Health?
It's been exactly the same as yours, and I'm 67. I mean, think about that. I'm in the best shape of my life since the 20s as well. My friends see me, and I look completely different. And Dr. Angela Peterson, she's changed my life. That's why I went in business with her. And she's actually will be on the next segment. She's actually doing a stem cell treatment right now in the room next to me. She's actually down here in Scottsdale with me. But the biggest thing is, gosh, just the way we look. My skin is clearer. I feel stronger working out. My muscle mass is better. It's best it's been since I can remember. And just the weight. I mean, I used to weigh close to 250 pounds, and now I weigh 175. It's just made a world of difference for me.
All right, Ken, what's that special offer you have for our listeners to give you a call today?
Well, the one thing I want to talk about, we got the holidays right around the corner. It's Christmas. Us guys, we need to treat ourselves better, and we need to take care of ourselves. And so we've got an incredible way, cutting-edge technology to help with erectile dysfunction. But as you mentioned, the testosterone, the peptides, it just all goes together. So anybody who signs up for our ED treatment, we'll give them, it's going to be half off, just like we're doing. We're going to run that through Christmas. Plus, we're going to add in 6 months of testosterone for free. So it's huge. Call our office, talk to Christy. She's standing by waiting for your calls.
All right, guys, today's the day. Massive savings. Take advantage of it. Give yourself a gift this holiday season by calling Lifestyle Men's Health today at 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203 or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Ken, thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you, Spence.
All right, coming up on the other side, voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. I got to say, the Utah Hockey Club are very proficient about sending emails, keeping us up to date on the happenings. Have you noticed this?
I have noticed that, actually. Oh. You're not wrong.
Just cleaned out my inbox because, you know me, no email, well, ever. But when I get in on Monday, I do like to actually check.
And yeah, they'll let you know like if the team is not meeting for something. That's how far they go.
I'm very impressed. All right, batting leadoff on a Monday afternoon. It's been a couple of weeks. The voice himself, the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. Where you been, man?
I've just been here, Spence, working away, slaving away, trying to get everything lined up and ready to go for basketball season. Sorry I missed you last week, but I enjoy batting in the leadoff spot. Who am I setting the table for? Who's batting behind me today?
Tom Haberstroh, number 2. We've got Garrett Bowles in the hole and Josh Furlong in the cleanup spot.
Furlong's batting cleanup? He seems like more of a, move the runners around the diamond kind of a guy. I would have put Bowles in the cleanup spot.
Well, initially you were in the cleanup spot, Bill. We just had to move some things around.
I know I had a small dental issue. I had a crown pop off. I got to get it put back on today.
Oh, dude, that's the worst. That's the worst as a radio host. Once upon a time, I had to do a show with a cup where I was spitting blood in the show because I had an extraction. That was here at the radio station like 5 years ago. It was not optimal.
By the way, does Gus Johnson still come to our city to see your buddy, the dentist?
He does. And when he's here, I missed him this last time around, but when he's here, he usually hits me up when we go to dinner. But yes, when he needs work done, he comes out and sees my guys, Kyle and John, every time.
I remember you telling me that. I'm like, that is so random. It's cool, but it's just random. The Gus comes to get his dental work done with your buddies.
My guess is you can't beat the price, Bill. That's my guess. But I'm just throwing it out there, man. How you been, though? Everything good?
Everything's good. How about you?
Good, man. Yeah, I'm good. Since you and I last spoke, the Utes hired an offensive coordinator, a running backs coach, and a wide receivers coach, all three of whom have BYU ties. Let's start with your impressions so far. I mean, obviously, we've got to see how it plays out, and the transfer portal giveth and taketh away. But Jason Beck, the new OC, Bill, what's your take?
Yet another sign. Again, we go back to this often. Spence has often accused me of being old, even though I'm like 4 years older than him, 5 years older. Anyway, I covered Jason Beck when he was a backup quarterback at BYU. I remember interviewing him when I worked at KSL all those years ago. So it's either those guys or interviewing guys' kids who you once interviewed, whose kids are now playing. So Jason Beck brings it full circle for me. I like the hire. Everybody I talked to over the last couple of weeks say this guy is a really bright mind, and I think it kind of goes hand in hand too with bringing in a new offense, kind of updating it a little bit. But Kyle talked a lot about, hey, you got to have a more simplistic approach to your offense than we've had in recent years. As I said, Andy Ludwig was not the issue this year. You've said it repeatedly on your show. But Andy had a very complicated offense that took you a while to get used to. Well, you don't have most cases, 3 or 4 years to guys sitting in programs to learn offenses. So I think you have to have, I think Kyle's term was plug and play. And from everything I could tell, Jason Beck, really good offensive mind, had good success at Syracuse before they had a rash of injuries hit them like Utah had them hit this year. And then, he and Bronco went into Albuquerque this year and inherited a team that, was really bad a year ago. And they weren't great this year. They turned it around a little bit, but the offense was off the charts good. So I like the hire. He's got to bring in guys he knows, running back coach and wide receiver coach, both, as you mentioned, with BYU ties, but both have been successful in some other places. And so I like the hire. I think Jason's going to bring and sometimes, in whether it's a head coach or coordinator, sometimes when a guy's been someplace for a while, sometimes you just need to freshen it up. Sometimes the message, and maybe this pumps some new life into the Utah offense. I know that's the hope, but on the surface for now, I really like it.
The other piece of big coaching news, and I probably should have led with it, I buried the lead, that's on me, is the fact that just Kyle's coming back, and ultimately last offseason, I heard from more than a couple of people who I'll just say would know better than I would, who just kind of felt like if this year went the way we all thought it would, it might be the last dance. It might be the swan song for him. And I have no clue whether or not the lack of results this year influenced Kyle's decision. I wouldn't be stunned if it did because, after the losing streak started to eliminate them from anything special, I did feel like Kyle's media was more pragmatic and matter of fact and checking off boxes of what they needed to do to get this thing back on track. He just struck me as a guy that wasn't going out like this. And then as the offseason started with no news on my show, I'm like, well, yeah, he's a coach under contract. So it just means he's going to continue to coach his football team. I guess the way I'll phrase it to you as somebody who's close to the program as anybody I could get on the show is, any surprise when you heard the news? How did the news land with you when you actually heard it?
I kind of felt like the longer it went without any kind of news, maybe it was trending in that direction. I was honestly a coin flip guy the whole way, Spence. If he decided to call it quits, I could have absolutely seen that because his career's been great, changing landscape of college football, really nothing left to prove at the program. But on the other side, too, I could absolutely see him not wanting to go out in the way it did. He's still very energized and young. And to be fair, the team, despite the 5-7 record, the defense was fantastic. And it was really one big area, that was quarterback play, that hurt them. So I don't think that they're that far away from getting back to where they'd been the last couple of years. So I think the longer it went when we didn't really hear anything, the more I was leaning toward him probably coming back.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I landed. All right, let me ask you this question before we get over to some other things, because as I referenced, Jason and the two coaches he essentially brought with him to coach the wide receivers and the running backs, all three have BYU ties, played there. And obviously when you look at Kalani's staff with Jay Hill and Aaron Roderick and Siona Pua and others, plenty of Utah ties as well. You're a transplant to our state, although you've lived here for like 60 years because you're old, so you know the deal here. I'm genuinely curious, Bill, if there's any other rivalry in college football that has this cross-pollination in the coaching staff. It feels like that makes this game and these two teams really one-of-one.
Yeah, I don't, Spence. It's what I've always said. This Utah-BYU rivalry is so unique in so many ways. But to see the number of coaches on both sides and if you have either coaching or playing ties at the other school is pretty amazing. And I think you'd be hard-pressed. I think most places you might go and see one coach or an assistant or something, but to see the number of guys that we have here at Utah now that have some ties to maybe the BYU program, and down there, the number of guys not only to the Utah program, but guys that either played for or coached with, it's pretty amazing. And I think that's what makes this rivalry as unique as just about any. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to find it.
All right, so I know that you cannot delve into the transfer portal waters, so let's make our listeners aware of that so they're not like, why isn't he asking about this? I would love to, but Bill can't, okay? So here's how I'll approach this, and you tell me if you can, kind of wade into these waters with me. Any idea, generally speaking, what sort of areas of need the team still has that they want to address in the transfer portal the rest of the way?
Well, I think I would guess it feels like, again, I don't see the numbers, but you follow social media posts. It looks like they've got a lot of their guys retained, but I would guess they're probably looking at maybe skill positions, if that makes sense. I think they probably would like to add, it looks like the running back room got pretty empty. It looks like the wide receiver room, by graduation, some other things did too. And I don't think you can ever have enough quality depth at corner. So I think those would be three areas where I looked. I saw a commitment over the weekend from some other places, but I can't talk about those. But I would say those areas, probably skill positions on offense, just by graduation and some names we've seen go in the portal by now.
What gives you the most confidence? If I'm just assuming that you do have confidence. So I'm just going to ask you as far as what gives you the most confidence that last season was a blip and not the deal now?
Just the success the staff has had. I mean, even the year before where they were wrecked with some injuries, with just the average quarterback play they got out of Bryson Barnes, they managed to go 8-4. I think most people would admit the quarterback play overall this year was probably below average, and they were 5-7. So I would say the track record of the guys that are on this staff, namely the head coach, and then you've got Morgan Scalley and the guys on the defensive side of the football who have been together. And, we talked about how good this defense was this year. I think they would have been talking about this defense nationally had the team had a little bit more offensive success. So I'll base it upon track record, and I think that the overall depth of talent that's in the program too.
One more quick football thought, and I know you got to run at 50, so I want to get a quick basketball thought from you as well. Bill Belichick takes the Carolina job. Kevin Young has built his staff in Provo with all ex-pro coaches, ex-pro strength and conditioning people, ex-pro nutritionists. Do you feel like from your seat that we're going to start to see a trend on both the college football and college basketball side of, whatever the infrastructure is in place, looking very much like a professional infrastructure?
Yeah, I think so, just because the money is there now, Spence. I'm not saying you'll see coaches like Belichick. I don't think you'll see a lot of NFL guys dipping down. I think Bill took it because it was a unique opportunity. He had some family ties there, and I'm just not sure there were a lot of NFL jobs coming. But I think you're going to see more, especially on the football side, and maybe a little bit more on the basketball side. I mean, you're already seeing it. People around the country, they're not they're not directors of personnel. They're hiring GMs, general managers. That's very much a professional term. And whether you call your guy a GM or not, that's what they've become. And every program's got one now. That's somebody that kind of monitors the money that you have to spend for NIL and also kind of the roster overall and goes out and tries to find talent. So I think we've been trending that way. We've been hearing terms like player personnel and personnel director and stuff like that. But I think the infrastructure now is going to take on very much a pro model mentality, because now you've got millions and millions of dollars in football programs and in some cases basketball programs. But to be very fair, there's money being spread across athletic departments for sporting programs, especially with the new settlement money that will begin rolling in this coming year. So, yeah, I think it's going to become more of a pro model. I really do.
All right, give me a quick basketball thought. And if you would, tie in, if you know, whether or not the A.J. Debance stuff, kind of sent a shot across the bow up here in Salt Lake. I mean, that kid is nasty. And BYU is building something down there. And, of course, we want Craig to succeed. They got to win over Radford. The St. Mary's game was, I thought, pretty encouraging. That's a good team. But ultimately, they could not come back after that big deficit. We got Florida A&M coming in and Big 12 right around the corner. Where are you at right now, Riles, with this project Craig has in front of him?
I think they've been in three different silos, Spence. They began the year with trying to want to play one way. Then they suffered the injuries to the bigs. So they had to play small ball for about 6 games. Then they got Lovering and Zach Keller back, and they added Caleb Lohner. So I think they're going back now to kind of where they were. The St. Mary's game was a tale of halves. They missed 7 or 8 shots, 9 shots around the rim in the first half, 16 for the game, and that was still a 2-possession game near the end. The big test for me is with where this team is now, having the bigs back, having Lohner in the mix, things like that. It's not so much FAMU tomorrow. The Rattlers come in out of Tallahassee, but it's Saturday. They go play in a neutral site game in South Dakota against Iowa. And this was an Iowa team that at home last week led Iowa State for about 37 minutes of that game. So I think that'll be a really good test. They played Mississippi State in a pseudo-neutral site game, and they were in that game to the end. To me, now that you've got everybody's healthy, you've kind of been together as a group now for 2 or 3 weeks with everybody healthy. To me, I'm looking at Saturday to see how they play against Iowa, because that to me will be a really good indicator as to where they are, because we're only 2.5 weeks away from Big 12 play against Baylor. So tomorrow night, FAMU won't be a huge test, but the real test for me is going to come up on Saturday.
A little birdie tell me that there's going to be a Bill O'Reilly podcast coming up. Is that in the works?
That is news to me.
Oh, well, then I was lied to, because I was going to give you an opportunity.
Breaking news?
Well, I'm breaking news about your podcast that isn't real. I was going to give you an opportunity to kind of spread the word. But if there's no podcast, there's nothing to spread, Bill.
Not yet.
You should start one. Why not?
Maybe down the line, I'd like to do that.
Oh, dude, what are you doing every day besides chilling at this point?
Shh, don't say anything, Spence.
We'll set you loose, man. Thanks for the time, okay?
See you. Talk to you soon.
Bill Riley not starting a podcast. I got to show you a text I got during the break with like artwork of his podcast.
Did you get punked?
I think I did. Maybe it was Ashton Kutcher. Who knows? So do not go subscribe to Bill's pod because it's not a real thing. You know what is a real thing? The effective testosterone replacement therapy on your body. See what I did there? Vitality peptides, testosterone therapy. Been on those things for about a year. It's made a huge difference. Our buddy Ken from Lifestyle Men's Health on the show. Ken, happy Monday. How we doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Spence. I do appreciate everything you do for us.
I appreciate you guys being a part of the show. I mean, we love our clients, and I'm a believer in what Angela does. It's worked for me. I know it's worked for you. So let's hear about your experience as a man in his 60s working with Lifestyle Men's Health.
One of the things that's, when you talk about ED, erectile dysfunction, it's not the easiest conversation to have. But I believe us guys are getting a little bit more comfortable talking about it. And because we don't have to stay with status quo. We can help. Taking the pills, taking Viagra, taking Cialis, they have side effects. They're a Band-Aid. We literally can fix the issue. And so we offer a free 30-minute consultation to go over your health assessment. Angela will go step by step, find out, and we'll prescribe the best thing to get you back on track. And that's probably the most important thing.
What is that special offer, Ken, you have for our listeners to give you a call today?
For anyone that signs up for our treatment today, they call Christy. We're going to add in, because you know how the testosterone has helped you. It's just made a game changer for me as well. And it all goes in line with each other. So we're going to get 6 months included of testosterone for free. That's a huge value.
It is a huge value, So give yourself a gift this holiday season. Recapture the fountain of youth by calling Lifestyle Men's Health at 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203, 385-458-9203, or online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Ken, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks, Matt.
All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. The great Tom Haberstroh is our guest coming up. We're back to Utah football with Garrett Bowles. We also have Josh Furlong later on. So plenty of college and pro football left, but a little bit of pro basketball coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. then following that, Monday Night Football, it's going to be the Falcons and the Raiders. There is a double dip. But let's talk some NBA on a Monday afternoon. Mr. Statistician Faceman, as he's known on social media. We know him around here as the great Tom Haberstroh. Tom, happy Monday, my guy. How we doing?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm well. I'm good. So we do have, I suppose, if you're going to, make this NBA Cup thing a reality, you could do worse than Bucks Thunder, correct, as the final. So we've got a pretty exciting NBA Cup Finals matchup. I wonder how many people care about it, but give me your thoughts on what will be the final matchup of this year's Emirates. Shout out to the sponsor, NBA Cup.
I love this matchup because I love what Chris Middleton brings to this Bucks team, and the fact that he's back and healthy is a much-needed positive story from what seems to be an injury-rattled season, beleaguered season of NBA star injuries. And Chris Middleton is finally back from his double ankle surgery in the offseason, and the Bucks are whole at the right time. I wrote about it on TomTheFinder.com this morning. This season has been a nightmare season from an injury perspective for NBA stars. At one point, NBA stars had missed 51% more games than they did last year, which is astounding. At this time last year, a couple weeks ago when I was on this program talking about it, the increase in number of game absences from star players had reached an increase of 51%. And luckily, there have been some returns. You've got DeJounte Murray, who's not a A-list NBA celebrity, but Chris Middleton has come back. And when you see the Milwaukee Bucks play, he does so much for them. And so, look, it's not the marquee matchup that I think a lot of NBA fans are clamoring for, but I'm telling you, Spence, I think this OKC Thunder team, they should be on national TV every week. They are that fun to watch. They have that much kind of wholesome homegrown talent. If you watch their post-game press conferences on the floor, at the podium, they are everything that I think NBA fans of yore claim that the NBA isn't about. That is what the Oklahoma City Thunder are. They are elite defensively. They're in the talks statistically for the best defense in NBA history, the way that they defend and the turnover rate. Isaiah Hartenstein has been a perfect fit next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams. And the fact that it isn't a marquee team in the NBA, despite having the number 2 guy in the MVP vote last year and having the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, the fact that OKC is not going to be on Christmas Day it's a real travesty for the NBA fan, because I do think that this Thunder team is electric. They're the next big team, and they were the next big team as recently as last year, this time last year. And yet I think that NBA fans aren't excited about this matchup, and they should be. The Dame, Giannis, and Middleton, Giannis is playing some of the best basketball of his career, and the Thunder are 20-5 with a point differential that points them as being one of the greatest teams that we've ever seen in the NBA. I'm telling you, they are that level, that caliber team, even without Chet Holmgren. And it just, I don't know. I like you said, the buzz doesn't seem to be there for Tuesday night's matchup, and it really is a shame, because I think that it should have a lot of buzz, a lot of hoopla, because the Thunder and the Bucks deserve it right now.
Tom, I promise I will not revisit this every week, but the fact of the matter is I don't feel like the league has buzz right now. And I don't know how much of that is football. I don't know how much, Sports Business Journal wrote a piece last week. I referenced this to start the show. And, the local perspective is simply this. Whenever there has been a compelling basketball product around here, people have shown up, people have consumed the content, and people are interested, whether it's Utah basketball under Rick Majerus, BYU basketball just signed the best recruit in the country, A.J. DeBanza, who's coming to Provo next year. So folks excited about that. And when the Jazz have been either really good or with a very clear direction of players that play hard with precision, people show up and play. But I will take advantage of having a smart guy on the show to ask you why you think that this thing simply is going in the wrong direction when it comes to interest of its typical consumers.
I think part of it is that LeBron and Steph are still here. I think part of it is the idea that, the NBA has been slow to invest in the next great star because LeBron and Steph are still here. And until you can't go to that, that mom and pop store downtown anymore, you'd probably take it for granted that like one day that's going to close up shop and that you're going to be looking around town being like, where am I going to get food? Where am I going to go meet my friends? And LeBron and Steph are still here at that age. LeBron's turning 40 here, and Steph is approaching those years. And I just did the math. The number one team in national television appearances this year is the Los Angeles Lakers with 27. Okay? They're a play-in team. They might not even make the play-in tournament. Okay? The number 2 team tied with the Boston Celtics is the Golden State Warriors. Okay. The NBA is still marketing this league as a LeBron and Steph league. And I get it. They just came off Paris Olympics. Their teams are hailing from huge markets in LA and the Bay Area. But there are real business decisions being made that lead to the Oklahoma City Thunder being this exciting, they play an amazing brand of basketball. They defend their tails off. They have a superstar in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that just slices up the defense, and he's this fashion icon off the floor. And they're the 8th most marquee team in terms of national television games this year behind the Philadelphia 76ers. And I think the NBA has to invest more in Anthony Edwards, in the Oklahoma City Thunder, in Victor Wembanyama, this next group. They have to put them in front of the national audience and market them as the next great thing. There just isn't that buzz around Anthony Edwards and Ja Morant and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Victor Wembanyama, but there should be. They should be on the same pedestal as Steph and LeBron in terms of marquee national TV audiences, but the TV partners have chosen elsewhere, and I think a lot of it has to do with the decisions at the national TV level. And I also think just the conversation around the NBA is pretty rotten right now. It's like if you turn on NBA coverage at the national level, it's a lot of complaining and a lot of, Steph and LeBron and negativity. And a lot of that is because the stars aren't playing as much as they used to, and that's a problem. But I think a lot of this is we have to put these teams on national TV and invest in this. Even if you take a little ratings hit now, LeBron and Steph can't play forever. And I do think that the league has to feature these guys nationally and a lot better and market them a lot better because it really is, we've taken LeBron and Steph for granted in some ways that we continue to roll them out on national TV and not investing in the next wave of NBA stars.
A lot of good stuff in there. And I do want to be clear. You are spot on about OKC. Watched the Jazz OKC game like a week and a half ago. Defensively, they're like, and I keep drawing the parallel to NFL safeties. They're like ball hawks. And the Jazz aren't good, but they couldn't get any action going consistently. And there are compelling teams and very good players. And what Sam Presti has done in OKC to make them excellent now, with a bevy of assets to continue that excellence moving forward. And, of course, there's always the scenario of when players decide they want to get paid because he had Durant, Westbrook, and Harden there at once and couldn't make that thing last. So there are plenty of compelling stories and plenty of talent outside of Steph and LeBron. But one more thing here because, the fact of the matter is, Tom, and you know this, the revenue streams the NBA creates internationally allows them to, I'm not going to say turn a blind eye to the domestic ratings, but it allows them to make up a lot of that income, those revenue streams that maybe could be sacrificed a little bit with dipping ratings domestically. Soccer is the number one game in the world, but basketball is number 2. Soccer is the global game, and basketball moves the needle in China, which we all learned with the tight-lipped nature of folks after the Daryl Morey tweet, and then in Europe in a way that football just doesn't. So is the expedited nature of their profit and loss statements because of the international money enough for them to kind of turn a blind eye to what is clearly now a trend of dipped domestic ratings, or is that bad for business and they need to figure something out?
Well, I think also you're hitting on something that is a big piece of this that we haven't talked about is the gambling aspect. So much of the oxygen on air, and I've been a part of this too, is devoted to the bets of the night, the parlays of the night. And you have, Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith on every broadcast talking their picks. And the same thing with ESPN Bet is that the TV partners that are currently existing are trying to push a lot of gambling. You know what the gambling doesn't do very well with is storytelling. And the storytelling is at a loss right now. And the Victor Wembanyama story, the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander story, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, they haven't done a great job of telling those stories, partly because they're international. Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went to Kentucky for a year, but he's Canadian. Jokic is Serbian and didn't even play. He was drafted and then stashed for a year before he came to Denver. Doncic was this wonder kid that came to Dallas and was sensational from day one, but we didn't know who he was. Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's playing in the NBA Cup, he's the Greek freak, and he has a Nike campaign around him. What a wonderful story he is. But it took years for us to really get familiarized with that product because a lot of these stars are international, and they've invested in the sports gambling. And I've profited off of that too, is that those decisions in my career, like I've made money off of, media partners that are investing in these entities. So it's not like I'm totally clean from this. But in terms of storytelling and where we find ourselves, I don't think there's that much buzz comparatively of where we could be. I think a lot of it is that those more short-term decisions, business decisions, rather than long-term. And I could be totally wrong about this, but I think you're hitting on, a lack of buzz for, Tuesday night's game, and it does bring to the forefront, why is that? And for all the reasons I laid out, it explains why, the NBA does have, at this point, a marketing problem, which I always thought the NBA was the best marketed product on planet Earth. Like no sports league markets the NBA coming off of Jordan, and the NBA is amazing and all of that. It just feels like we're in between eras right now, and we're trying to find our footing.
Yeah, and look, man, you're a grown-up. You know this. Like, you follow the money to find the story. And when the NBA was most compelling, the money hadn't, permeated its way through everything. Like, players used to play because they needed to get paid. And coaches used to coach because they needed to get paid, twice a month. And now the money is so ridiculous. And if you just follow the money, and then if you listen closely, you hear things occasionally where they do say, as the kids say these days, the quiet part out loud. So 2 years ago, after Dallas was beaten in the playoffs, Jason Kidd takes the mic and says, what you guys don't get is we're millionaires cheering for other millionaires. And I just went, oh, dude, I know, Jason, I'm aware of that, but don't say it out loud. I honestly think there's a feel from the general sporting public that if you're in the NBA circle, you're fine just cashing your checks and you don't really give a rip about whether or not the fans watch or not because you're getting your guaranteed money anyway. Kevin Durant last year said it out loud. You guys don't understand. We never talk about the fans. We don't keep you guys in mind. So last thing here, and then we'll move on to the more compelling stories. I honestly believe if we bottom line this, Jason Kidd said it out loud. These are millionaires cheering for other millionaires, looking from their ivory tower down at everybody else. That's what I believe.
I've heard it from GMs, executives around the league that are frustrated by the power that players have now, both financially and politically, that they're untouchable. And is that the best thing for the league that LeBron James last week, and dude, the guy's turning 40. Like we're already playing on borrowed time in terms of like LeBron, does he need to do more for the NBA? But as an example of where we're at, he just left in the middle of the season. J.J. Redick doesn't even have an answer for where he went, what he's doing, when he's coming back. In the middle of the NBA season, right? I mean, LeBron James still the biggest star in the sport and can just leave for multiple games and no one knows what's going on. And I think that speaks to, the general lack of, I don't know if information is the right word or care, but I can certainly imagine people at the league office were not too pleased that he was gone for personal reasons and then came back and said he had to, he had to get his foot right or whatever and get that taken care of. But no one knew, right? And J.J. Redick didn't know and couldn't say anything. And so it's I don't know. It just feels we're at this place where, guaranteed contracts in football, right? Non-guaranteed contracts in the NBA just isn't a talking point with the players union. But you look at the percentage of games played by NBA stars, it dipped below 70% at one point this year. It's now above 86% currently at this moment. Star players are playing, 80-85% of their games. But earlier this season, it was dipping below 70%, where stars were missing games. 33% of the 49 players that had played in an all-star game the previous 3 seasons. If we look at the top 49 players in the league, 1 out of every 3 were in street clothes. And that's just tough from a marketing standpoint, not just for the league, but like for fans and like, hey, I'm going to go buy Lakers tickets when they come through Utah. But really, how much are you going to pay if you don't even know if LeBron James is going to be there? And so I think that kind of brings it all home is, if you have stars that are missing 1 out of every 3 games and you're supposed to put down money to go attend these games or clear out your calendar and go to an NBA game, or, hey, what are we going to watch tonight? Are we going to watch Industry, Game of Thrones, or the NBA game? Oh, I don't really know. Is Giannis playing tonight? I don't know. Maybe we'll just watch Game of Thrones. Like, that's where we're at, and it has to be, it's hard to turn around the Titanic, but I think there has to be a culture change, or else, it's going to be tough for everyone to make this money at the next TV deal, which, by the way, 75 billion reasons why those stars and those executives are going to be just fine.
Right. Line. Nature is if you have a guaranteed contract. Look, if I signed a deal where I knew I was getting $20 million, no matter what I did on this show, I'd show up on a Wednesday and make fart noises for 4 hours. I'm not mad at the players. I understand the deal. It does dilute the product, and that's what sucks. But let's move on. And to your point, the compelling stories are what those of us that love pro basketball and the NBA want to hear. So I'm going to ask Tom Haberstroh to stretch his creative mind and tell me a compelling story about the 5-19 Utah Jazz.
The compelling story is unfortunately another residue of the NBA's incentive system is that Utah Jazz have a 14% chance of the number 1 overall pick. I mean, that's the way that the league has set it up, is that the worst teams have the incentive to continue to be poor so that they get more ping pong balls to get a guy like Victor Wembanyama, Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, you name it. And it's not always the number 1 guy. The Thunder have this dude, Jalen Williams, who is not even a top 10 pick, who's looking like one of the best young players in the NBA, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander also not a top 10 pick. So it's possible that you can still get an elite player outside the top 5, but your chances fall off pretty dramatically. And Utah right now, as it stands, it's hard to build a winning culture when we know the incentive structure in the NBA is such that it pays to lose. And Markkanen, it would make things so much more interesting if Lauri Markkanen wasn't locked in, but he's locked in. And so you're kind of just building around Lauri Markkanen and hoping that they're able to fast track this, bring in some real talent around him to take advantage of the fact that 2 years ago, the dude was an all-star, starting in the all-star game and averaging 25 points a game. And now, after 2 years of being kind of in the bottom of the league, you're looking at a guy that is struggling to maintain that status. And I wish I had better news for you, but it does seem like Lauri Markkanen at this point, and you've talked about this before, is he a 1A on a championship team? I don't think so. He's a 1B or a C star player. Is he a third on an NBA, championship team? Right now, it seems like the face of the franchise is probably in college basketball or international right now, because I don't know if it's Markkanen.
Yeah. It's a rough scene around here.
I tried to do something positive and ended up being way more dark than I intended.
Well, there's just no way to spin it. And, I get a lot of pushback. I had Zach on last week, Zach Harper, your buddy. He joins us every week. And I had somebody reach out after listening to that interview, being a little bit surprised about how hard we are on the team. And I'm like, dude, what do you want me to do? I mean, we have smart basketball fans here that have seen great college basketball for decades. And while the NBA team has never won a championship, more often than not, this is a market that's used to seeing a connected team that plays hard with precision. They're the worst team in the league, the Jazz are this year, at turnovers per game. They're the worst team in the league at allowing points off of turnovers. They're the worst defensive team in the league. They're the worst transition defensive team in the league. Indicate those are lazy things. Those are habits. Those are work hard things. Those are get back on defense. Don't be an idiot with the ball. And look, we could bottom line it and say this is all intentional, but to your point about covering basketball, it should be about the games. It should be about talking about what we're seeing and the games. And if I watch the Jazz and I talk about what I'm seeing, all I'm seeing is some of the worst basketball we've ever had here. And I really feel, Tom, because, Will Hardy's had his option picked up both year 4 and year 5. And I'm telling you, when that hire came down, I talked to all of my NBA contacts and 100% said grand slam. Jeff Van Gundy on the show called him a rising star. Steve Kerr said something to that effect. So my basketball knowledge says a team that turns the ball over, a team that won't get back on defense, a team that doesn't play hard is poorly coached. But I can't go there with Will because I just don't think he's had the pieces. And when he's had even average pieces, he's actually coached them up to when they were, to a point where they were winning more games than people thought. So I don't think this is a coaching issue. But, Tom, this is a team that plays like it is poorly coached. Is it a roster issue, a coaching issue, a little bit of both?
I think it's a top-down issue in the sense that, what do you expect? The writing is on the wall with the direction of the franchise. They locked in Markkanen, of course, but there hasn't been an infusion of talent on this team. And so you're expecting Keontae George to be the starting point guard on a team that, I don't think he's ready for that yet. You point to Will Hardy as the coach, and maybe that's his job, is to develop him. But, there isn't Chris Paul on this team right now. In OKC, Mark Daigneault, he had Chris Paul and he was able to put that team in the playoffs. And you're seeing that the San Antonio Spurs have Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul on the team, and they're probably going to the playoffs, or they're trending that way with the way that those guys are playing right now. And I just don't know if you can really expect a Michelin star meal when you don't get Michelin star ingredients. And, do we give Will Hardy credit for turning Lauri Markkanen into an all-star or a player who was starting an all-star game? It cuts both ways in the sense that you can point to this team and that they're last defensively. And I will point out, they are first in free throws in the league. Their free throw rate as a percentage of their field goal attempts. So there is something where they are not bottom. They're actually at the top, which is impressive. But that's certainly not going to put people in the seats that you get to the free throw line a lot. But there are little things here and there. We talked about it last week. John Collins is having a resurgent year. But they have to defend much better. And the way that it is right now, just culturally, it's really hard to build a winning product when the incentive structure in the league is such that everyone knows what time it is. If the odds were flipped and there was a different path for this team to acquire, real franchise-changing talent, maybe this isn't the conversation we're having, and maybe it is a matter of like, let's go get a Draymond Green for our team. Let's go get a Rudy Gobert for our team and keep him here for the long term, because you know what? Like, he might be older or phasing out of his 30s, or out of his 20s, but you know what? We want to keep that guy here long term and not have to do a rebuild. But that's really what it comes down to, is the incentive structure is such in the NBA that it does help to add more ping pong balls long term, or at least it makes sense to the front office, and it's just tough marketing wise to do that.
I so badly want, I've got a couple of buddies still in the front office down there, and I so badly want to see if we can get a free throw campaign started, a marketing free throw advertising campaign started, because that's all I want now. Like, hey, I was at the Suns game on Friday. That building is not close to full, and it usually is, and it has been at times this year. It just wasn't Friday night, and that's Kevin Durant, that's Devin Booker. Half the stadium was occupied by the BYU basketball team and athletic department, so there wasn't a ton of excitement in the building. But now all I want is, if you're wondering why you should roll to games, just know we're atop the league at free throw percentage. Come on down and watch the Jazz.
Yeah, I mean, that's what puts people in the seats, isn't it? Yeah, totally.
It's just brutal. It is just brutal. All right, before I set you loose, I'll just revisit, because every time I go to prep for the show and every time I, kind of look into the Jazz stuff, there are all of these trade rumors out there, and we don't know the deal with Danny. Honestly, I'm not even sure how connected Danny is. It feels like Zanuck's doing most of the legwork. You reference Collins. It's only a good thing. Either at 27, you've stumbled into maybe a piece of this puzzle, or you can move him and jettison him on. Like, if you told me last year they were going to get a first-round pick for John, I would have told you were crazy, and I still think that's a lot to ask for. But there's part of me that believes the team is built perfectly to lose a bunch and follow the salary cap rules, because you got to pay players. So part of me wonders if they just sit back and do nothing, because they're actually on track to do what I think they're trying to accomplish, and that's maintain their draft capital. But if you're an opposing GM, any of these Jazz vets catching your eye right now, and what are you willing to give up?
Yeah, it's not going to be a first-round pick, unfortunately, for my guy John, who went to the great university in Winston-Salem, Wake Forest University, who just let go of their head coach, Dave Clawson.
I saw that. Yeah.
Very, very confusing. But anyway, John Collins, it's tough to see a market for him that warrants a first-round pick, considering what we saw from Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder is going to the Golden State Warriors for second-round picks and DeAnthony Melton. And so, that doesn't bode well for other players, like veteran players who are looking to, or GMs, I should say, who are trying to move a veteran player, because Dennis Schroeder averaging 18 points and 6 assists while having, some great shooting, two-way ball for the Brooklyn Nets. And he was, he didn't get a first-round pick. So it's going to be tough to envision Sexton, John Collins, Jordan Clarkson getting much more than that, because as good as John Collins has been, I think in terms of value across the league, he's probably in the same category as Dennis Schroeder. And Dennis Schroeder wasn't able to get a first-round pick. So we'll see, but I don't see a frothing market for John Collins after that trade.
All right, Tom. Well, appreciate the time. Jazz basketball, free throws and such. But, I'll keep watching pro basketball. I know you will too, my friend. Have a great week, and we'll chat soon.
All right, Spence. Have a good one.
All right, the great Tom Haberstroh, very busy guy, has a number of different podcasts, writes a Substack called TomTheFinder.com, writes for Yahoo Sports as well, and is on the Blazers analytics team. All right, coming up on the other side, while I was interviewing Tom, some exciting Utah recruiting news took place. We're going to update you on the Utes. Got Garrett Bowles on the show today. A 4-year contract extension with the Denver Broncos. Played his college ball around here. Going to bring in Josh Furlong from KSL, who also covers the University of Utah, so plenty of U football coming your way. Tom, today brought to you About Time Pub, which is Utah's premier sports bar. Amazing food and killer cocktails. You can make About Time your place for sports or even brunch. All food is made from scratch. They've got new mocktails for those of you who don't partake in alcohol. They've got more TVs than tables. They've got free Wi-Fi, every sport going live, so you can, quote, work from home. Check them out for holiday party options. Locations: Ogden, Layton, West Valley, West Jordan, Sandy, Tooele, Harriman, Bluffdale, Lehigh, and Vineyard. Utah Sports Bar celebrating their 15-year anniversary. Check out more information online at abouttimepub.com. All right, before we catch a break, we welcome in Angela to the program today, and Ken, Lifestyle Men's Health. Hello, how are you?
We're good. How are you, Spence?
I'm good. Great to have you on. Angela, we'll start with you because Ken and I have already done our thing a couple of times. We'll bring him in a moment. So I met you over a year ago. Testosterone replacement therapy, vitality peptides. Those are the two things you've helped me with. And I can tell my listeners, if you are a man who's aging a bit, you can really recapture that fountain of youth by doing what you like to refer to as biohacking. Angela, what do you want our listeners to know?
That is so true, Spence. You know, we can really reverse the signs of aging, and testosterone is really important for men. And most men these days have a very low testosterone level. So it's nothing you did. It's just something that happens. It's probably related to our environment, but we can get you feeling better really quickly. And we like to say this all the time, Spence. You know, you don't know how bad you felt until you start feeling good. And that's what we really do well at Lifestyle Men's Health, is to get you feeling better, get you back in the game, get your intimacy better. So by replacing testosterone and doing peptides that will help increase your functions throughout your whole body, we really can change things around for you. So give us a call. We're happy to help, and we really are passionate about what we do.
Ken, what has your experience been with Lifestyle Men's Health?
Well, as I mentioned before, being in a little bit north of my mid-60s, it's literally, and the people who know me have seen me, I just look completely different. I'm in the best shape of really since my 20s, like you said for yourself, and that is true. And it's just made a profound improvement on my life and quality of life. You know, we're living longer, but we might as well enjoy and perform at our peak potential longer as well.
All right, I'll throw this to either one of you who wants to give us the special offer for any listener who gives you a call today.
Okay, so it's going to be the ED special where we're taking it half off, so we can help those men who are struggling in the bedroom. We can fix that. And then anybody who signs up, as we mentioned before, we're including 6 months of testosterone for free. That's a huge value.
That is a huge value, so give yourself a gift this holiday season and check out the Fountain of Youth at Lifestyle Men's Health by dialing 385-458-9203. That's 385-458-9203. 385-458-9203. We're online at lifestylemensclinic.com. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Spence.
Thank you.
All right, give them a call. Lifestyle Men's Health. Some Utah football recruiting news that just came down the pipe coming up on the other side. You're going to bring in Garrett Bowles, played his college football at Utah, now with the Denver Broncos. And then Josh Furlong later on. Plenty to do on this Monday right here on ESPN 700. Going to do some Utah football here. Going to bring in Garrett Bowles coming up in just a little bit. Garrett Bowles just signed a 4-year contract extension to remain with the Denver Broncos. Of course, Garrett played his college football around here. What a story, by the way. What an unbelievable story Garrett Bowles is. Porter, I think you referenced him as like an actual real-life blindside when we were talking about booking him last week. The Garrett Bowles story is an inspiration, to be sure.
And part of that has to do with the actual blindside being like a kind of a farce. But, I mean, he's a guy that was homeless at one point, actually, and like has bounced around, living on people's couches and getting through, he's open about this. We'll probably talk to him about it. Learning disability stuff through his childhood, that it really was a uphill climb, an uphill battle for a guy to get to the level that he's at, and to get to the level of success at the level of football that he's at is really remarkable and well deserved. Obviously, we know a friend of the program. He's a good dude.
For sure. So stay tuned for that conversation. We've had Garrett on before. And shout out to my buddy McKinley for helping us out. All right, let's do a little transfer portal updates here for our Utah fan listeners. We had Bill on earlier, but Bill is unable to comment on transfer portal additions as he is an employee up there now after leaving us and heading up to the U. So, of course, a lot of players in the portal. I believe the number for Utah is 20 as of right now, and we'll kind of see how this thing goes along. The CFP bracket is still in front of us, as is bowl season. But according to reports, Utah has a cornerback in the fold now. Donovan Sanders is his name, from Texas A&M. And obviously cornerback, a position of need as a result of some disappointing news a week ago. Any info you have on this young man who's landed here to play for the Utes? Yeah,
well, with Cam Calhoun entering the portal, obviously Utah was looking to either replace him or get him back. Needed to do so in a big way. And yeah, Donovan Sanders is the latest one. Utah had a few recruits over the weekend as well, a few commitments in their class now. I think 40-ish as far as the overall ranking goes. But with Donovan Sanders, it's a kid that's 6'3", 6'4", 200 pounds. He's got the frame that is really good for the cornerback position. He's quick, a track kid out of high school. And when you look at his recruiting profile, I mean, it's Washington, it's Texas A&M, it's TCU, it's Utah. This is a player that had some big schools and some solid prospects as well. So for him to come to Utah, I think is a win, and I don't know if he's an immediate impact guy or one that you try to play into the fold as the season goes along. But he's got the profile to play. And when I've watched some of his tape quickly since the news went down, I've seen him playing both corner and safety, which, as you know, Morgan Scalley, Sharif Shah love when they have a guy with that kind of versatility, and they may have just found one.
Is he a ball hawk?
He better be. If he's playing for Utah, he better be.
But I just want to be very clear. If he's not a ball hawk, I'm not interested.
He better be a rough, smart, nasty ball hawk, I think, is their thing.
Follow-up, is he – because you know my hope for Utah football this year, the roster, dudes who love ball. Is he a dude who loves ball?
I think so. Okay. Reports are indicating so.
That's good. All right, Wayshawn Parker. Oh, by the way, let me credit, before I move on, let's see. This is Brandon Huffman, who has the Wayshawn Parker news from 24/7 Sports. And as far as the Chris, I do not know who this is, but we have Josh Furlong on the show. I know who Josh is. But Josh quote tweeted a tweet from a guy named Chris Hummer, who's also with 247 Sports. So that's where we're getting this information. Just to clean that up, make sure that we're giving people the credit. So let's dig into this potential running back. So he played up on the Palouse for Wazoo. His name is Wayshawn Parker. According to 247 Sports, he's the number 2 running back in the transfer portal and has announced that his decision will be down to 2 schools, and Utah is one of the 2 schools. So Utah is in on Wayshawn Parker, who played up on the Palouse. Any inside information about the type of back this is?
I mean, it's a Pac-12 freshman of the year. There you go.
Not bad. Number two QB in the portal. Now, Devin Dampier was the number 7 quarterback in the portal according to ESPN's rankings, which is a really good rank for a school like Utah that in the past has had to settle for less desirable transfer quarterbacks. If this kid's the number 2 back in the portal looking at Utah, I mean, that's not nothing at all.
He's a legit prospect and one that Utah would love to have in the room. Multifaceted running back. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can block. He's the most complete back probably that Utah has prospects on. They also did get Mike Washington, not to be confused with the Washington State commit. Mike Washington out of New Mexico State committed over the weekend as well. And he's up there in the top 10 or so as far as running back prospects go. So they've already gotten one in the room, hoping for another, of course, to kind of fill up that room. With Utah, man, that running back room, it seems like they, unlike the quarterback room, there's no promises, there's no games being played. They just fill the running back room up with 4, 5, 6 guys that they think they're comfortable with and say, hey, one of you show us that you're our lead back, and they kind of go with it, and that's probably what you're going to see next year too.
So this happened when we were off air. Creed Whittemore, a wide receiver from Mississippi State, has also transferred to the University of Utah. And, of course, Dorian Singer, Money Parks graduating, Dorian also gone. This is a spot that needed to be addressed. He's a 4-star kid out of high school, according to 24/7, number 28 receiver in the transfer portal, 5'11", 185. Just picture me. You know, it's exactly what your boy looks like. 2 years for Mississippi State, 11 catches, 102 yards as a freshman, 60 yards rushing and a score. Last year, played the first 4 games for the Bulldogs. 4 passes, 65 yards, 41 rushing yards. He's fast. I can tell you that. He was a track star in high school. So any insight on, because we were wondering, we heard last week Devin Dampier, quarterback. Okay, so you're hearing, a couple cornerbacks. Got a punter in the fold, a linebacker as well from Oregon named Jackson Jones. So incremental additions. This is the first wideout added. Give me your thoughts on this kid.
Creed Whittemore. What a name. And this is like your and he's bigger than Britton Covey, but he's a quarterback in high school. He's one of those shifty, ball in hand, slot receiver, but really just get him the ball as a returner on a handoff, on a whatever it may be, a short hitch route. He's one of those types of players that, you're not going to be wowed by his deep ball down the field prowess, but he is going to, I think, be a good target immediately for Utah. I mean, you look at his production at every level he's been at, everywhere he's been at. That's one that I think might fly under the radar a little bit. They're hoping for him to fill the void of the return game. Something that's been a little slumping for Utah last year or two.
You ever seen the Shane Gillis bit about watching football when a wide receiver catches the ball?
I think so.
Go, 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 go. Oh, they got him. Tough run. Smart run. Tough run. Is he a coach on the field?
I don't know. He does maybe 2 inside here. He does have 3 brothers, I think, that have played D1 football.
All right.
Father played ball. Smart kid. Smart football guy. High IQ.
High IQ. Underrated athlete. He's got to be an underrated athlete. Tough, gritty, plucky.
He's, sleepy athlete.
I like it. Sneaky good. So, Utah making some inroads. Like I said, I believe 20 Utes have hit the transfer portal. Bill said, let me bring you in on one more thing here, because Bill did say something earlier that kind of had my antennas up. Mm-hmm. Again, the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, hopped on earlier, but as a result of him being an employee up there now, he cannot answer certain questions about players in the portal or players incoming until it's officially announced by the school. But Bill said, he has it on good authority, that a lot of the players that are in the portal from Utah are coming back to play for Utah. Now, as I remind people every single day, just because a player's in the portal doesn't mean he's leaving. It means he's weighing his options. It's a smart thing to do if you can monetize your skill set. I have no issue with it. Do you have any insight as to who these players Bill was kind of alluding to that he thinks are going to be back on campus in the fall?
Well, that's a good question, because I think that the the main one that you point to is a Cam Calhoun. It's a Sione Fotu. It's players that are in the portal that were expected to be contributors, because there's not, frankly, very many of them. The majority of Utah's players that did enter the portal are not going to be contending for reps next year. Now, Jack Baumeister, that's a outlier there. He would have been the starting punter next year. He instead is taking a pay increase to go to Texas. But Utah knew that they had a good inline on a punter coming in, so they said, "Hey, go make your money, Jack Baumeister. We'll move on." The same is kind of unfolding with one Cam Calhoun, where he's getting offers, Spence, from big schools with big pocketbooks, and they're respectable offers. It's crazy that we're talking about this in college football, again, as you mentioned, during bowl season, during college football playoff season. Again, a simple calendar switch, Spence, would do wonders for the chaos that is the college football transfer portal. Just a calendar switch would help a lot of things in that regard. But yeah, the same thing's playing out with Cam Calhoun, where Utah is willing and maybe able to probably up the number there, and they very well may do so. But once the final whistle comes, whenever Cam has to make that decision, it just depends on what schools are there and what offers he has, because it's a true free agent situation right now, and he is open to coming back because he likes it here, likes the coaches here. But that's the main one that I would be looking at is the situation with Cam Calhoun.
If you've ever wondered the power of the game and the product of football, you should study the business of college football. What other business has this whole, we'll figure it out when we realize we've massively effed up? Mm-hmm. That's how they operate, because it should have been so simplistic and obvious for anybody that was involved in this decision-making process to not allow this portal to be open while there's football being played. That's basic 101 stuff. That's not, you need a master's in sports psychology or the business of sport to come up with that one. That's a simple staff meeting where whoever's in charge is like, hey, should we keep the portal open while the season is going? And everybody would be like, no. Why would you even think to do that? This is how powerful college football is. People love it and consume it despite the fact the business model has been broken for years. It's actually quite phenomenal.
It's remarkable that it's gone that far without any I remember 2-3 years ago, Spence, we were all I think backpedaling and just gathering our thoughts with what college football is and what it's going to be. And I think everyone was like, pandemic's going on. There's a lot going on around us. We'll find a little landing zone. And frankly, if the NCAA would have acted at all, I think we could have found a pretty safe landing spot, or at least one that feels somewhat normal with college football. And I think that going to a 12-team playoff and the conference changing in a big way, I think a lot of that could have resulted in college football finding a new landing spot that still feels like the old college football. But we've gotten to a place now where the NCAA has let it go so far, and they have lost their teeth to enforce anything, that they can't enforce anything. So what do? It's just a free-for-all, and you do what you want. And you don't even play by that calendar, Spence. The one that we're talking about where, you're courting players during bowl season and college football playoff season. Well, I got to break it to you. It was happening before that too, during the season, on the sidelines, while teams were here, while Utah was at their home stadium. There's stuff going on in college football that is completely beyond the fray. If you went 10 years ago, you would have been in death penalty situation as far as SM. And now it's just it might be a violation, might not. We don't really care, because this is what matters in college football now. It is conferences, it is TV money, and it is revenue.
The guy who brought up the idea to keep the portal open at the staff meeting would have been the one everyone made fun. Did you hear Bill in there? He wants to keep the portal open while we're still playing.
Right.
It's the dumbest thing, and it's like the simplest thing. And by the way, because this is how they roll, this will be the last year because they wait for it to be completely screwed up before they actually do anything. It's two things. It's phenomenally incompetent, and it's also remarkable to consider what college football will look like when the right people are in charge and they actually figure it out. It will happen. There's too much money at stake. Okay. Now here's the deal, and then we'll catch a break. With the lack of regulation and the clear valuation and value of the product, you're getting venture capitalist money. You're getting private equity money, and you want to know what these guys won't stand for? Losing their investment.
Right.
So they're going to call Ohio State, and they're going to say $700 million for 48% of your program. You want to know why? Because these guys know that if they're involved, the right people will get involved with the sport, build it to where it needs to be, sign a TV deal that is tens of billions of dollars, and their $700 million for 48% of Ohio State is going to be worth $5-6 billion easily. That's why the right people will get in charge. But it had to come to this, where everything is so broken and everything is so misguided. But my point is, it really is a commentary on the power of this sport, that it continues to draw the interest and the eyes, and the power of probably legalized gambling and the addiction nature of dopamine hits that we all have on our phone, and that's a problem, but it's led to interest and more revenue. My point is this. It shows you how powerful, for whatever reason, the game and the sport of college football seems to be to the public consciousness.
If there was this much shakeups and chaos and turmoil in a company that I was investing in, I would sell. Like, I'd be out, right? And that would be the case all around the country for anybody if it wasn't in sports, right? There's certain. I'm not a business major. I'm not a. I don't live in those spaces.
Did you stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night?
No.
Okay.
I didn't.
All right.
But there's just not many businesses where you would tolerate that, right? People would be fired. You'd move on. You'd find a different company to come in and buy out, fire everybody, and there'd be changes. But in college football, you just say, it's broken, but it's still awesome, and we're still going to tune in, and we're still going to watch, and we're still going to give you our money. We're still going to sell at the stadium. So it's quite interesting to watch.
And the sport will, and then we'll catch a break. Got to get to Garrett Bowles here. The sport will settle into a place of stability and a place of extreme profitability, top to bottom. The structure will be in place to make sure that this thing is run in a way that it's never been run before. And all that is good news. Okay. So I know that there are the old school college football fans that still believe in amateurism, and we were all indoctrinated into believing the student athlete and the farce of all that to distract us from what was actually going on. But now the emperor has no clothes, and no regulation and valuations in the billions will lead to money coming in from VCs and private equities, and they will not allow this thing to be run into the ground because it's their money at stake. So I know that sounds dirty to some people, but if you're a college football fan, it should lead you into confidence that this thing will be run the right way and figured out at some point. Rant over. Garrett Bowles is next right here on ESPN 700. Putting me to sleep. Put me to sleep. We got Garrett Bowles on the show. We got to get a little juice here. Going to bring in Josh Furlong, all the latest on the transfer portal. Oh, there we go. Give it a minute. We're only allowed what? Like 30 seconds, then they get mad at us. Is that right?
I think technically. Radio, we're good. YouTube, they're very strict.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, we are on YouTube, but let's welcome him in. It's a big week for our guy, friend of the show, 4-year extension with the Denver Broncos through 2028, and Garrett Bowles good enough to join us on a Monday. Garrett, happy Monday, man. How we doing?
Doing good, Checketts. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. I appreciate your time. First of all, congratulations. I mean, it's an amazing story. It always has been. It continues to be. So I just got to know, man, what was it like to sign on that dotted line once again, knowing that you survive and you advance again?
It's a dream come true. You know, I love Denver. Denver's been a home for me. My kids have grown up here. It's always a place that I wanted to be. You know, when you talk about leaving a legacy and, you know, you talked about some of the greatest tackles to ever play the game, and they played in one jersey. That's what I've always wanted to be, and I've always wanted to do. And just following some of my, you know, mentors like Joe Staley and, you know, Andrew Whitworth and those type of guys that laid the legacy on their teams. And so, you know, I see those guys. They tell me about it all the time, and now it's came true. Now all I got to do is put in the work, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.
You know, I'm not saying, Garrett, you'll tell us when you're done doing this, so that's certainly not my place. But when you look at what this extension could mean for you, there's a chance that you will be a Denver Bronco for life. And it's just a rare thing for football players to stay with the same team. Like I said, I'm not telling you when you're done. You've got plenty of football left. But have you considered what that would mean for your pro football legacy, to be with the same team your entire career?
I definitely know I'm going to be a Bronco for life because I'm just going to make sure that happens with the way I play. But I love this organization, man. They've given me everything I can ever ask for. And a beautiful place to live that's close to home, you know, about an hour flight from home. So I'm very lucky to have that. But, you know, just an opportunity where I get to have my voice and to be, you know, one of the best left tackles in football. I think they just, you know, let me be myself and let me choose. And I think Coach Spain does a phenomenal job. I feel like I'm in a very similar program structure-wise, just like what Coach Whittingham did with me at Utah. Just a family atmosphere that, you know, they love their players, they push them hard, and we grind every single day. And, you know, that's just what I'm used to. And now we're starting to see, you know, the success that we're having when we push ourselves hard in practice and, you know, the off season and doing everything we can to click on all cylinders. And that's what we're doing now. I get to see, you know, we're finally winning. And that's all I wanted to do was win here and to bring a championship back here to Denver where it belongs. And, you know, I'm going to do whatever I can in my power to make that happen in these next 4 years.
So, Garrett, this is not the first really nice contract you've signed, but I will ask you, were there any different emotions? Were there any, or did it just feel like, look, I'm good at this, I'm playing at the highest of levels, they love me, I love them, let's just keep this going? Or was there an extra added, like, holy smokes, look what I've done with my life?
No, I think there was a holy smokes moment for sure. I think, you know, this last week was super emotional for me. You know, 4 years ago, my family came in town as well, and I signed around Thanksgiving time 4 years ago, and then they were here this weekend as well, and I got to sign. So, you know, it's crazy how things work, you know, with my family being here in town and being part of such a special moment. But, you know, it's amazing, Check. It's just to be an opportunity to play in the National Football League and, you know, for all the many kids that struggle like I do and they all want dreams. And, you know, I think you just got to put in your work every single day and trusting and believing yourself. And, you know, I've always believed myself that I'm the best left tackle in football, and I truly believe that. And I pride myself on that every single day when I go to work and when I play on Sundays or, you know, Thursdays or Mondays or whenever we play nowadays. I guess we play on all different days these days now. But it's just awesome, man. It's been definitely an emotional week. I'm grateful that this week's over. I can put it past me, but now just focus on football and my family and, you know, hopefully get us in the playoffs and, you know, get back to where we belong. You know, this will be one of the first times in 8 years since I've been here that we're so close to making the playoffs, and that's all I'm thinking about right now.
All right, so when you sign a contract that's going to pay you that type of money, is the first call the wife and you say get the drapes? Is the first call your like what's the first point? Again, you've made plenty of money. You played in the league for a while. You're doing just fine, Garrett. But when you make that additional type of money, what's the first move? What's the first play? How does that go down?
I knew this question was coming. My uncle's probably listening to this right now because he takes such good care of me. But no, man, to really be honest, I have an amazing wife. I truly do. She's so phenomenal with not just our children, but the way that she, our money and where to put it. And we made a list about 8 years ago when we got married, and I said I was going to go in the NFL when we were at Utah, and when I got drafted, 8 years ago. We made a list of exactly what we want, and we've gone in order with that. And it's been awesome. I think that now this contract that we have, I think I can do a lot more good with my foundation. I think that's the number one priority is, make sure I'm investing to take care of my kids. That's who I am. That they're taken care of, and they can live a life that I never lived as a child. And just giving them the best opportunity to be successful, and not only that, but just blessing other people's lives, blessing those kids that struggle with learning disabilities or, kids with apraxia. I know we have so many big things coming up in these next couple of years that I get to be a part of, and, just, put my name on it and, just love these kids that we're going to bless their lives with, learning disability centers or helping the kids with, the Arapahoe County youth centers, reamping up their pods, but just really focusing on the youth, man. There's so many kids here that struggle, kids in Aurora, kids in Centennial, with the gang violence and all that, and just be a part of that. And, that's what really helps me play football is when I get to see those kids' lives change and bring them to games and bring them around my teammates and have my teammates be around them. It's just an amazing opportunity that I have now with this third contract that I get to bless other people's lives with.
And definitely, it's so well said. It says everything about you. I want to get to the foundation where people can get more information before I set you loose. But I want to stick with the contract, but I want to move away from the money and just talk about, from a provider standpoint, from a competitor standpoint, from somebody who's in the position that you're in, as somebody who's already shown his worth as a football player but cares greatly about his community and his family. What sort of relief does security bring, or is it just you've got to stay sharp every single day regardless of the security you have in place?
No, I think I definitely have security. Definitely, with the next 2 years being fully guaranteed, I definitely have some of that. But, I think just this contract is I just wanted the respect among my peers in the NFL, knowing that I am one of the best left tackles in football. And, I didn't start off the best I wanted to in Denver. The first couple of years I was struggling, just trying to figure out the game, since I haven't played it for that long. But, I hired a phenomenal team outside the building with coaches and nutritionists and, body workers, and just getting my body and my mind physically in the best shape and, mentally and spiritually and obviously, physically as well. And, once I did that, my whole career turned around about 2019. And now I just see from 2019 to now, I just feel like I'm in the best mental space I've ever been, which helps. I'm a big believer is the way that you live your life off the field is how you play on the field. So I just try to do everything I can possible to, put myself in the best situations off the field so that when I'm on the field, my mind can be sharp and ready to roll. But I want to be the best, man. I think, with this contract, it just puts more fuel to my fire knowing that I still have so much to accomplish in this league. Ring of Fame with the Broncos, want to get a gold tackle. Like those were always my dreams. And now I have an opportunity to do that, to play these next 4 years, the best ball that's ahead of me. I feel like the game has slowed down for me. I understand the position more. I mastered my technique, and now the sky's the limit for me.
Whose idea was the Wolf of Wall Street? I'm not going anywhere. Social announcement, Garrett.
My agent and my uncle, which you know very well.
Yep, my guy.
Together and thought it would be good to do it. I didn't really know it, and then when I signed my contract, they showed me, and I was dying laughing. But it worked out perfectly. I have such a great team, man, that's behind me that has put me in the best positions. Like I said, mentally and spiritually and physically to be able to accomplish to my third contract. Without them, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I'm very grateful for the people that have helped me along the way, and especially the people at Utah, like Coach Harding, Coach Whittingham, Coach Scally. The whole Utah coaching staff I love so much, man. They put me in the best positions, the way mentally to be able to play in this league. And, coaches and people around the league always love the Utah players because of how Coach Whittingham runs his program. And, I'm just grateful I get to play such a phenomenal mentor that he is to me, and now I just get to go and be my best self and represent Utah in the NFL, and it's awesome, man. I love it, and I'm just very grateful to where I'm at now.
For sure. So you reference your winning ways, and Garrett, as you know, we have a lot of Broncos fans in this market because of the proximity to the city and no NFL team in Salt Lake. And we saw Bo Nix. I was on the sidelines when Bo was up here with Oregon, and all of that experience in college. The question was, will it translate to pro football? And it certainly has. And of course, your head coach, Sean Payton, has made a living as being a bit of a quarterback whisperer. I think most people have been caught off guard at how evolved Bo has been and how well he's played. You protect his blind side. What's that relationship like?
Great. We have a great relationship. I love that kid, man. I always tell people he's not a rookie. He really isn't. And I think it's just the experience that he's had at Auburn, then transferred to Oregon, and then, with Coach Payton and, is like what you said, a quarterback whisperer, like he definitely is. And, Bo is just that type of kid that's so humble and hungry and wants to be the best. And, probably one of the most competitive people I've ever been around besides Russell Wilson. But, he's just so special in all aspects of the game, the way he studies, the way he talks, the way he leads the huddle. You would never think that this is his first year. You would think he's, 5, 6, 7 years in the league. He demands the team. He holds himself accountable more than anybody I know. And that's just the type of leader that you want. And it's fun to block for a kid like that. Even though I'm older than him, I feel like sometimes I'm way older than him. But, he was pretty old coming into the league, but you would never even know that. He's just a special kid, special talent. He can use his legs. He can use his arm. And, the sky's the limit for us when he has the ball in his hands to give it to our playmakers.
I got to know, Garrett, from your vantage point, okay, because obviously you have a front row seat in a way the rest of us don't. But the first few weeks for Bo didn't look great. And I'm a long-suffering Jets fan, Broncos fan because you're our guy, and watching the Jets. You guys got the win. But the first few weeks with Bo, it just didn't look great. It looked like a rookie, and that's totally understandable. And then from my vantage point and most people that cover the league, he just figured it out, and it just clicked. And it's not perfect because he's young, but when did you see, from a seasoned vet perspective, and maybe this is as early in camp, but when it comes to what he's done this year, was there a seminal moment? Was there one game, or has this just been an evolution that you've experienced with your rookie quarterback?
No, I saw early on in, OTAs when he joined us for the first time of how he was just quiet and wanted to work. And, it was definitely a quarterback competition between, Zach and Stiddy and Bo. Like, all three competed, and it came down to the wire. But I had a feeling it was going to be Bo just because I feel like he has that leadership capability that, is very, very important for a quarterback to lead an offensive charge. And then I saw him make plays, jump throws that I've seen Russell Wilson do for the last 10 years in the NFL, where he rolls out and just throws the ball deep down the middle, opposite direction. I'm like, what in the world? Or like he'll, run and the defender's coming and he'll just jump in the air and whip the ball. And it's like, dude, the way he places the ball, or, that throw he made to Mims on Monday Night Football, 2 weeks ago. And, it's just those type of throws where he puts it in the, in the window. And, he's learning. Like, obviously he made some mistakes yesterday that, he, of anyone, he knows that he can take back. But just how competitive he is, man. Like, nothing phases this dude. Like, literally nothing. Like, he can throw a pick in the next day or next, possession, not next day, but next possession. He's ready to rock and roll. And you would never think we go down there and we score, and then he throws another one, and then we go down and score again. Like, it's crazy how this man just processes information so fastly and just lets these mistakes go away and then gets back to help us win the game. And, that's just the type of competitive nature he is. And we're very fortunate to have him, the ball in his hands, and that we chose him when we chose him in the draft.
We've got a couple of Bills in the NFL. We've got a couple of Colts. We've got 4 Broncos. Denver's kind of become Utah NFL stop, and I want to ask you about some of these former Utes, and we'll kind of go in order. Cody Barton, and you guys, Garrett, as you know, you're playing complementary football in a way that we haven't seen in Denver for a while. The defense has been great. What's it been like to experience what Cody Barton has done for the Broncos this year?
He's been a hell of a player, man. He really has. I mean, he's just been balling. When Alex Singleton went down, I think Cody stepped up big time, and, he got the green dot on his helmet, and, Coach Vance Joseph's defense is very complicated. He drafted me to Denver, so I've seen it firsthand with some of the freaks of natures in the league with Von Miller and things of that nature. But just watching him compete at such a high level and making big-time plays, sacks and picks and leading the defense, I mean, he's a leader out there, and everyone would say that on our defense, and he puts everybody in the right position. And, I'm so proud of him, man. I know this is a big year for him to get a big payday in this league, and I truly believe he's one of the best linebackers in the game. I really do, for how smart he is. But you saw that Utah, man. You saw what he did at Utah, made tackles and plays all over the field, and he just has that tenacity of, I'm going to punch you in the face, and he has that chip on his shoulder. I think that's what you want in a middle linebacker for sure.
Stay on the defensive side. And, last season, Jonah Ellis was clearly making himself a lot of money. And he was, Garrett, as you know, every year Utah has like that dude, that Nate Orchard, that Trevor Riley, that whoever it is. And Jonah really burst on the scene last year, ends up in Denver. And it's a lot of promise for this young rookie, just from your vantage point, Jonah Ellis, Utah, and also Denver Bronco.
I'm biased towards the Utah players, of course.
Of course, yeah.
I want them. I want them all on my team. But I love Jonah, man. He's like my little brother for sure. I've taken good care of him. We've had great battles in camp, and the way he uses his hands, and I wouldn't say he's the biggest guy, but the way he uses the leverage game in his hands and his quickness, and it works for him. And he's made big time plays for us. I think he has a couple sacks on the season, and but just, making plays, making some TFLs in the backfield, he's just humble and hungry too. And, you can't count out the Ellises, man. They're freaks of nature coming from their dad, that he was at the game yesterday. So it was good to see him and, that family that I love dearly. It feels like family just from Utah, but I'm just grateful he's here too. He makes big impact plays for us, and, the sky's the limit for him as well. I think he's going to have a phenomenal career, and, watching him beat his brother when we played the Falcons the other day, and then he makes that big-time play, points right at him on the sideline. It was pretty cool to watch.
So we will always look back on this era of Ute football, Garrett, as you know, with what could have been if Cameron Rising stayed healthy. And from a team standpoint, certainly we'll always look back on it, but we'll always also look back and wondered what Devon Vele could have done here with Cameron under center, because he simply looks the part. And unfortunately, Devon's evolution cost another former Ute his job, but Tim Patrick has landed on his feet in Detroit, where he's playing well. I wonder what you make of your rookie wide receiver, former Ute Devon Vele.
Vele's a freak too, man. I mean, you would never know how old he is or the way he moves. Like, he's so young, body-wise and mind-wise, but just like, everyone dogs him about his age because he's an older rookie, but you would never even think that. I mean, the dude just makes countless catches, and we got to find more ways to give him the ball for sure. And, he makes big-time catches for Bo. I mean, he made a big-time catch on Monday Night Football, diving for him. Bell hit the ground, but he got his hands and scooped it off the ground. But, I mean, countless times when we need big-time plays, Vele's getting the ball, and it would have been exciting to see with him, with Cam Rising and what he would have done at Utah. But he's definitely making a big impact in our room, being undrafted and coming in here, and he's going to play in the NFL for as long as he wants, because he just has that tenacity of knowing how to get open and using his hands and his quickness and his size, and, sacrificing his body for the ball. And that's just all you want as a rookie. And not only that, but a football player. I mean, the dude just works his butt off, and, he's locker partners, so he's right next to me. So, I have to give him some smoke every once in a while, but I love the dude, and I think the world of him for sure.
Before we get to your foundation, Garrett, I've got to get your take on news that I think most people were expecting, but a lot of people curious as to whether or not your former head coach would be back on the sidelines for Utah football once again. And he will be, as Kyle has announced, year 21. He's coming back next year on the sidelines. What do you make of that?
No, it's awesome, man. I think Coach Whittingham, if you know him, he would have never left Utah the way that, this past season's had. I think it's one of our worst seasons we've had in, 10-plus years, which is crazy because it's unheard of for us to have a type of season like that. But, sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce our way, and, we have added some injuries that cost us some big-time games. But, that's football, man. That's why you play the game. You never know who's going to win. But I know Coach Whittingham is going to go out. I'm assuming this is going to be his final year. Go out with a bang, and then, I believe Coach Scally takes over, I think, or something like that. But, that culture is so amazing, knowing that coach is one of the longest 10-year coaches. Not only that, but staffs as general. It's unheard of to have, you have so much turnover in staff, but that staff stayed together for a long time. I just think it speaks volume for the culture they built, the players that they bring in, the way they develop us, from, men to husbands to fathers to football players or whatever we go on to do in our lives. I think it's just a culture of wanting to be, the best man that you can be, and he prides himself on that, and he's a great man himself, and I think that just makes us all that much better when you play for a coach like that.
All right, Garrett, before I set you loose, you have this foundation, the GB3 Foundation, and our stories are not that dissimilar, man. That's why I've always kind of respected you and latched onto you and your story as a beacon of hope for people that find themselves in hard places. So shout out to your uncle and one of my best friends, McKinley Oswald, for helping us get you on and helping you with this foundation. But where can people go to get more information on the GB3 Foundation?
Yeah, you can go to the gb3foundation.com and look over there. We have a store where you can purchase some T-shirts and start rocking my brand for sure. We're going to start pumping that out here pretty soon. And, we're going to look out for some big events. We obviously do our football event, early springtime or right before summertime in June. And we're also going to do some big-time fundraisers to raise some money for we're going to start remodeling the youth center here. That's right by my facility, the Arapahoe County Foot Center, which where, troubled teens get locked up. We're going to reamp the pods there, so we're going to start raising money there, so give them some more resources about how they can interact with their families more, give them some iPads and just, fresh paint job and, clean up some things to make it more friendly oriented so that they can feel, more safe and be able to get the help they need with their counselors. So that's been a really cool project of me to be for. And then, we're just going to try to do whatever we can to raise as much money to help the kids out here in Denver and in Utah and just produce as much as we can. I do a lot of speaking engagements, so if you ever want me to come speak, I would love to come speak to your football teams or whatever. But I just love the community, man. I love the youth. I think, they're so, they're attacked in all aspects of corners these days with, technology and, with the click of a button, you can be trapped. And I know, I'm just trying to get out there that, if you put your mind to hard work and put your mind to what you believe in and what is your why and why you do what you do, you can overcome anything. And that's just what I love to tell the kids. And that's my foundation. I'm just grateful I get to, have a foundation and stand up for something bigger than just myself and helping the youth out as much as possible.
Truly one of the most remarkable stories in pro sports, man. You always have space on this show. You have a fan behind this microphone. I'm so thrilled for you and your family. Congrats, and stay healthy, most importantly, will you?
I appreciate it, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right, the great Garrett Bowles. My goodness. So let me be clear on one thing, although I said our stories are somewhat similar. I didn't end up in the NFL signing my third contract worth $82 million. But Garrett went through some real rocky times, and he came out on the other side and pulled himself up by the bootstraps. So I didn't mean to compare myself to an NFL player who just signed an $82 million contract.
Would be nice, though.
Hey, can you get on that for me?
Yeah.
You're my people.
I'm trying.
Can you negotiate
Trust me.
You know what? I'll accept half.
If I can negotiate half of that.
But truly, he's a sweet guy. He's a great kid, and he has turned himself. And you know what? Credit Garrett for referencing early on with the Broncos. There were a lot of penalties, and I can remember because there are a lot of Bronco fans around here, a lot of people down on Garrett. And he really has turned himself into, by any metric, one of the better left tackles in pro football. According to PFF, he was the fourth best in the league last year. And if he hit free agency, he would have had a massive payday, maybe even more than he made, to stay home with Denver. But as he just said, he is a Bronco for life, and I couldn't be happier for him, man. Garrett Bowles. Check out his website. You can just search the GB3 Foundation. You can go to GarrettBowles72.com is another touch point for you. And he's on social media platforms. If you ultimately would like to check him out on social media, just search Garrett Bowles. That's where you can find him. So shout out to my guy McKinley for making that happen. Garrett's the man. More Utah football coming up on the other side. We'll catch up with Josh Furlong from KSL. Moving to the 5 o'clock hour of the drive prior to the Craig Smith Coaches Show at 6. And then Monday Night Football after that, right here on ESPN 700. Monday Night Football wraps up your week 15 in the professional ranks. Feels like both these games should be flexed out. Not going to lie. Bears-Vikings. Bears 0-6 on the road. And then Falcons-Raiders. Raiders are cooked. Falcons are close to it. Oh, it's on the station, so listen. Right?
Yeah, it's actually matchup of the year.
You know what? My bad. This is it's a massive game tonight in Vegas.
Playoff implications, maybe.
Entertainment value through the roof. Right?
And it's in Vegas.
Josh,
it's home.
It is.
Much.
Josh Furlong, KSL. Either of these Monday Night Football. I don't remember. Are you a Cowboys fan? What's your pro team?
Yeah, I'm right there with Porter. I'm a Cowboys guy.
That's right. Either of these games tonight getting you excited. Maybe you're in the fantasy football playoffs. Maybe there's that.
I do fantasy, and one of them I'm on a bye, so I got the first round bye, so I'm okay. I'm good.
Not a guy.
These games don't matter to me.
Not a guy. I'm kind of with you. All right, Josh, thanks for joining us on a Monday. Since you and I last spoke, a lot has happened, namely potentially a starting quarterback on the way. We'll get the latest on the transfer portal news, but Devin Dampier signs on the dotted line last week. What should Ute fans know about this new QB option?
Yeah, I mean, he's a talented QB. I mean, he's a dual threat quarterback, obviously rushed for a ton of yards. He can pass the ball very well. It's still not the highest percentages in terms of passing, and so there's going to be some numbers that they want to improve upon. But this is a guy that, if he continues to make the same progressions, it could follow in a very similar Jaden Daniels route, right? Like, obviously, projecting a guy to be a Heisman is not easy or really realistic or fair, but he's that type of a player in the sense that he has the capability and the talent to be able to be a great rusher. He can be a great passer, and if he can get all these pieces around him, I mean, this could be a really dynamic quarterback that helps Utah. And so I think you're seeing that with some of these portal guys that are coming in that's trying to build around him and trying to make an offense that is going to be pretty dynamic, at least on paper. And you know how we love those paper things, as we talked about. But, I mean, I think this is a great pickup for Utah. This is somebody that's going to be different than what they've had. This is somebody that obviously they wanted Nate Johnson to be, but never really materialized. And so if they can get this to work, Utah's got themselves set up for at least 2 years, unless he has a solid year and decides to declare for the draft. But all in all, I mean, this is a really solid pickup for Utah.
All right, so that lends to the rest of the quarterback room before we move on. And we had Bill on the show earlier, and Bill is a university employee now, so he can't comment on most of this stuff, but he did say one thing that kind of caught my antenna, which is what he's hearing is Utah football has been able to convince several players in the portal to come back. Do you think that includes any of the quarterbacks that have elected to enter the transfer portal, and what's your latest understanding as of today on Monday, where we're at with Cameron Rising?
Cam, yeah, there's some definite interest to have him there. My understanding is the conversations have been about being the backup. This isn't a starting role. This would be come into the room, add some depth, be a guy that can really add to what Utah does. I've heard some rumors about Isaac Wilson potentially coming in as well. I don't know a lot of these things until they're official. It's hard to know. There's some gauging of interest, but I know Utah wants at least one of those guys, whether that be Brandon Rose as well in there. They want one of those guys to be able to come in and be able to be a solid backup for Dampier, push him, have somebody that understands the culture at Utah to be able to provide some consistency there. I think, look, if you can get Cam Rising to come in there and you can agree to have him be the backup, and Kyle comes out initially and says he's going to be the backup, this becomes a great plan, right? You've got a guy that can come in here and he understands everything that needs to be done. He knows how to win at Utah, and if he's fully healthy, you've got a great, consistent backup who can still kind of go out on his own terms in some respects, where there's going to be times where he gets to play. So, if this is the path that Cam decides to choose, I don't know that it's a bad one. Getting another quarterback from the transfer portal outside of those guys that have left or Cam is going to be tough, just because you've got a guy that can play for at least 2 years, and so it's going to take a while to get another quarterback to add to that depth, unless somebody really understands that they're not going to be competing for a starting job. So all in all, I think that's a great situation for Utah if they can get somebody like Cam to be in that defined backup role as long as Kyle Whittingham makes it clear initially that this is what it is. It's not going to be this debate of, we'll fight for the starting job and all that kind of nonsense. I think you kind of have to move on from Cam Rising and expect this is the direction that you go in.
So ultimately, we've already discussed the hire of Jason Beck, but I wondered if you've been able to dig in, film, anything further to understand exactly what sort of offense we should expect next year for the Utes. Anything over the past week after the hire, as far as what you've kind of dug into that allowed Jason to build that offense as one of the top 5 in yards per game in college football last year?
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing revolutionary, so to speak, right? I mean, it's a spreads concept. He likes to utilize the RPO, likes to be able to have a lot of different athletes do a lot of different things, kind of create some wrinkles in there to kind of get some creative runs. So it's not like it's this completely different style of offense that players have been running, but he finds different unique ways to be able to scheme to the players that he has. And I think with what Utah has in the roster already, as well as what they're bringing in the transfer portal, you've got a lot of talent where you're going to keep defenses guessing because you have a guy that could be, flexed out as a wide receiver who has a history of being able to pass the ball, who could then be used in some sort of, option situation to be able to throw it back to him and use Dampier in a different way. Obviously, if this is all working out the way that we're expecting it to, Dampier is going to be the guy that can kind of make that engine work. And if he can get that RPO engine running, I mean, this becomes a really dynamic offense. You've got something where Jason Beck really kind of understands spacing. He understands how to kind of key in on that defensive end and really try to make that quarterback understand what he needs to do. And so there's a lot of wrinkles that you can do into this, even though it is a very, I don't want to call it simplistic, but it is a pretty standard offense that you're going to see with a lot of players. But on that same side, this becomes a great opportunity for Utah, especially in the transfer portal and the guys that are there, where it's much more plug and play like Kyle Whittingham has wanted, where he wants to be able to bring these guys in, still fit the culture of what they've got, but then allow them to kind of hit from ground one instead of having to memorize this Bible that Andy Ludwig had. So, we'll see. I'm really fascinated to see what spring brings. But I think the people that he's built himself around with, whether that's Mark Atuaye, he's the new running back coach, or Micah Simon, the wide receiver coach, these are guys that, he's coached with, he's got consistency with, and he understands their system and how they work, and they understand him. And so you've kind of got this coaching staff now that really kind of fits with that offensive style. They all kind of work together, and they're hustling. They're out there on the recruiting trail doing everything they need to. So it's this whole full hands-on approach to be able to just build an offense that can be dynamic and bring in a lot of players that can do a lot of different things.
All right, let's get some thoughts on some other either potential transfers or transfers that are already in the fold. I've got Josh's Twitter up. If you're not following Josh for all the latest Ute news, I know they call it X or whatever, you know what I mean. It's at J for KSL. Tell me about Wayshawn Parker. Okay, so he's a running back who played up on the Palouse for Wazoo, the number 2 ranked running back in the portal according to 24/7 Sports. I'm seeing that you're tweeting out he has whittled his list down to 2, and Utah is still on the list. Let's hear about this.
Yeah, so this is a very talented young running back who obviously fits in the same model of the new current running backs coach. So they have some chemistry there. He has, at least according to 24/7 Sports, narrowed it down to Arizona and Utah. I know that he was supposed to visit Utah at the end of this week. So, I mean, that bodes well. Obviously, he's going to know what Arizona has to offer. He got rid of the L.A. schools that he was going to potentially reach out to and visit. And so you've got Utah that's going to be there for the final sell. Parker, he's, like I said, he's young. He's got a lot of talent. He's a bruising back. He's exactly the type of running back that Utah wants. I mean, this is a guy that, he only rushed for 735 yards his freshman season, but that's quite a bit, right? Like, he's averaging 5.36 yards. I mean, this is a guy that is really kind of showing the true potential that he can be as a running back. Utah has made him their priority number 1, probably outside of Dampier. I think he was probably the number 1 priority, but Parker is the guy that they're putting a lot of their trust in. And if you can bring him in there, and add to that running back room that they're having to rebuild, this becomes a great asset for Utah. Parker already was in a system with John Mateer, who had a running quarterback. He understands that system and kind of that balance and that workload, and he's still able to produce. So there wouldn't be a lot of difference with now operating with Dampier and kind of utilizing the system that they've got there. So I think this would be honestly one of the biggest pickups for Utah this offseason if they can get it. Obviously, Dampier is the guy that's going to make the engine go, as I've said. But Parker, if you can get him out of the portal, that becomes a massive win for Utah, and you have to instantly think that this is a successful offseason.
Creed Whittemore, wide receiver, he rolls in as well. And, of course, Money Parks, Dorian Singer. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see what happens. But as of now, this felt like a need, yeah? So what should Ute fans know about this new wideout?
Yeah, this is a guy that, he's a phenomenal athlete. He was a high 4-star coming out of high school before he committed to Mississippi State. Actually played quarterback in high school and was a dual threat QB. This is one of those guys that I was talking about that they've recruited to where they have somebody that can do a lot of different things. He comes into college as an athlete, as somebody that can do a lot of different things. You can look at him as maybe, I hate making comparisons, but you can look at him as maybe kind of like a Britton Covey-esque player where he's just talented in whatever you put him in. But this is a guy that obviously was putting up some significant numbers in Florida, lived in Gainesville, and so he's able to do a lot of good things from high school. Now, he redshirted this last year at Mississippi State, and so they didn't really have a great system going on right now this year. But this is a guy that has a ton of potential, and if you can get somebody like Micah Simon, the new wide receiver coach, to tap into that potential, keep pushing him more, you can get Dampier to connect with him and have a connection in the off season, whether that's through spring and in the summer. This becomes a great opportunity for Utah. I feel like I keep saying that, right? And I understand this is the off season. It's really easy to project that when you're looking at guys coming in. But I think Utah has done a really good job of being able to identify their weaknesses, where they needed to grow, and has added the players that would absolutely fit this system. So once again, this is all on paper and stuff that we'll probably debate for 9 months until the season starts again. But this Creed becomes another great pickup for Utah. That's just kind of a multi-use, a Swiss Army knife type player that you could do a lot of different things with him and really help Utah's passing game, but also kind of mix into kind of other things where he just becomes an offensive weapon and all around.
It's been 5 days since Cam Calhoun announced that he's entered the portal. I haven't seen anything official as far as signing on the dotted line, and I will go back to what Bill referenced earlier as far as him hearing that a lot of players that are in the portal could be back. Maybe Cam's one of them. I have no idea. But if he's not coming back, maybe there's a replacement from Texas A&M. Donovan Saunders, he's also signed on the dotted line. Josh, what should we know?
Yeah, this is a guy that Utah's had interest in for quite a while. Whether Cam comes back or not, I think that window's slowly closing, or quickly closing probably at this point. But they pick up Saunders. They also get Jeremiah Caldwell, who's more of probably a project as a corner. But you're getting a physical 6'3" corner who's got some size, has had some experience, obviously, and been able to do well at the places that he's been. Entered the transfer portal last year, and that's where he committed to Texas A&M before coming back out. But Utah's had some interest in him for some time, and so this is kind of starting to be the prototype that Utah's trying to get. They're trying to obviously get those bigger-bodied corners. They want guys that have some more size, get in there and kind of mix it up with these receivers that Utah has to contend with. But we'll see. I think with these corners especially, it's hard to fully know until they get on the field. But if they're willing to buy in, and if these guys can buy into that culture that Sharif Shah has put in place, there's a ton of potential there for him. With his size and his ability, you have to believe that he could be one of the next good ones at Utah that's in line to be able to get in there. So still kind of a wait and see with him, but I'm curious to see how this develops, because I think just with his measurables alone, this is exactly what Utah needs.
All right, Josh, before I set you loose, because 20 Utes in the portal, at least that was the number when I started my prep today. And instead of asking you about each one who has actually left, I'll ask you about the one that stings the most, the one Ute player that's got away that you think stings the most, at least at this point.
Yeah, that's a tough one because when you said that, the two that kind of came to my mind were Carson Ryan and Cam Calhoun. I think Cam Calhoun stung simply because he was all locked in, had an offer with Utah that they agreed upon in theory, was trying to get people to commit to Utah, trying to get guys here, and then kind of just suddenly out of the blue leave. And so I think that one stings in multiple ways. Obviously performed on the field, and you could see the potential that he has. But I think one of the ones that it stings the most is probably Carson Ryan. Unfortunately for him, Utah's offense was broken. They didn't really have a lot of success. And, I think he could have done a lot of damage at Utah if you had some competent QB play, because this is a tight end that absolutely fits the Utah model of where he can be the disruption. He can get in, mix it up on the line, but also flex him out a little bit and put him in as a receiving role. He's just that mismatch that you want in college football. He's a bigger bodied tight end, has good hands, was able to do a lot for Utah, even though he wasn't really able to get a ton in there. So I think just losing another weapon like that hurts Utah, especially when, you're trying to rebuild an offense, and he was one of the key players that they wanted to keep. But at the same time, I think I don't want to say all of these guys are replaceable because it's tough to lose a lot of guys. But I think when you lose guys like Carson Ryan or a Cam Calhoun, those are the ones that hurt a little bit. But you're seeing in the transfer portal that Utah's working really hard to replace it. And as much as it can sting, you just have to wait a little bit, and there's potential for you to do better. So I think Utah's done fine. I think Carson Ryan's still kind of that piece that you could have had that would have been taking Utah to another level, but you got Landon King to commit to come back, and so I think they're not as bad as if both of those guys had left, but still probably the biggest sting.
All right, Josh, appreciate the time, man. Exciting time of year, even though for Utah it's the offseason. We'll keep glued to that Twitter feed, and we'll chat soon, okay?
Sounds good, man. Appreciate it.
All right, Josh Furlong, KSL, covers the University of Utah. He has all the latest on the coaching shuffle and players coming and going up on his Twitter page at JFurKSL is where you find him. 5 o'clock hour comes your way coming up next. We'll do mostly pro or college football. We're going to say goodnight in time for the Craig Smith Coaches Show for an hour. He and Bill, all the latest on Utah men's basketball. Then it's time for Monday Night Football. Let's welcome in Ryan from the Dish Professionals on the program on a Monday. Affordable solutions for your wireless options, your internet options, and cable TV as well. All you have to do is dial 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
That's just that easy. And, these price increases, guys, if you haven't seen your bill or you haven't got the notifications, it's happening. And you're seeing it all the way across the board, especially in the streaming side right now. And, guys, bills are going up. You want to pay more or you want to pay less? YouTube TV just did a massive increase. Now it's equivalent to the same price as Dish. Now, that's the good questions you got to ask yourself is, are you getting the best service? Dish has the biggest, fastest DVR out there, auto hops commercials, remote locators. Guys, this thing does so many cool features, from auto recording your favorite games, auto recording the local channels. Take advantage of the upgrade. Guys, you get a massive upgrade with a huge promotion. It'll save you money even on streaming services, and it'll even do more than that because the offer right now, guys, will cover your costs for Netflix for the next 2 years. And yes, Netflix is built in. It's like a channel along with Amazon Video Prime, YouTube. In fact, you can add any app you'd like to the system. It'll work on all your TVs. So you have one remote, you pick it up, you watch what you want to watch on traditional TV. If you want to watch streaming, you just hit the home button, pick the app, and it opens it right up. Simple, easy technology. And, guys, we can help you save money, get this fantastic offer with Netflix. And if a Netflix isn't your cup of tea, guys, we got a $200 gift card we'll throw your way. Take advantage of that offer and let us set you up and have you installed as early as next day for free. Plus, we'll throw in dinner at JCW, some movie channels, and ask about the internet offers. 6 different internet providers out there. If you just got a big increase a month or so ago with your fiber, guys, call us up. You can probably pay another provider and use the exact same fiber and pay 20% less. It's truly that easy. Call us today and upgrade and take advantage of the deals and promotions. We'll throw in the little extras, as always, guaranteed the very best price, and ask about the wireless options too. Use the same cell towers, literally the same cell towers as your current provider, have the best coverage in Utah, all the bells and whistles, hotspot, use it in Mexico, Canada, wherever, and spend $20, $30 a line less, plus get a free iPhone 16 Pro or a new Samsung S24, free with no trade-in. Call us today, 424-DISH. It's 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Pros. Josh Furlong today, brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products. They are the #1 rated window company in Utah. They're locally owned. This is Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sac Lake City, Jake Weber as well. Just great people, great families. They've been doing this forever. They take care of our community, so keep it local. You'll save a grip of money as they have their winter football special going on right now. So if you're in the market for windows now, maybe you're buying a home, maybe you're selling a home, call to get on the schedule to lock in a massive savings of $2,500 when you purchase 10 windows or more. But if you anticipate being on the schedule come spring or something like that, just call and get on the schedule so you can save the money, okay? So here's the number. It's 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or online at advancedwindows.com. Our good friends at Advanced Window Products. 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, what's going on? It is Drive at 5 time on a Monday afternoon / evening. Happy Monday afternoon / evening to you. Chilly day. But hey, it's December. Don't know if you noticed. We're on our way to Christmas. Kind of a mild weekend. 50 degrees Saturday after our snowstorm Thursday and Friday. But happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Off to a great start to that work week. Been a busy show so far. Just under an hour left. We're going to bring you the Craig Smith Coaches Show. All the latest on Utah men's basketball with Coach Smith. And, of course, Bill's going to be on for the ride. Speaking of Bill, he joined us earlier. If you missed the Voice of the Utes, check out the website or the podcast page. Fun conversation with Bill Riley earlier today. 5 o'clock hour of the program on a Monday is brought to you by Overtime Cards and Collectibles, which is the best spot for all of your football, basketball, hockey, MMA, and even Pokemon card collecting. It is the holiday season, so why not an Overtime Cards and Collectibles gift card for that stocking stuffer? They have the best trading cards and collectibles around. Go check them out online at overtimecardsandcollectibles.com where you can buy and trade. Also, coming up this week, it's one of my favorite weeks that we do with the not just the radio station, but our company, Broadway Media, and all of our friends and peers in the market in radio and television, where we're going to be on remote at the road home coming up on Thursday and Friday. First of all, we'd love to see you at that time. Second of all, our donation numbers aren't what we like them to be this time of year. So if you have, gently used blankets, coats, shoes, hats, gloves, things like that, ESPN 700 and the Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers invite you to help those at the road home this holiday season with those items. So you can drop off the donations at any Rocky Mountain Chevy dealer. You can visit ESPN700sports.com for dealer locations. So spread the warmth and help others find their way this holiday season. I'll be broadcasting the show live at the road home on Thursday and Friday of this week. If you want to kind of get in the holiday spirit, if you want to give back to the community, if you want to see some, unfortunately, quite frankly, very sad stories, people trying to get back on their feet, we'll be asking for your donations on Thursday and on Friday and encouraging you to come by and say hello as we broadcast the show live from the road home. I think this is my 19th year doing this, and it's always one of the highlights of my holiday cheer. So, busy show. Garrett Bowles, who just signed a 4-year contract extension with the Denver Broncos. He played his college ball around these parts for the University of Utah. He's going to roll by. Coming up in just a little bit, you'll hear from Garrett Bowles. If you missed Bill, good stuff with Bill Riley today. We did a little pro basketball with Tom Haberstroh and more Utah football last segment with Josh Furlong from KSL. A lot of moving pieces. When I started my show prep this morning, there were 20 Utes in the transfer portal. And Bill, I think, dropped a little bit of an interesting tidbit earlier on the show today during my conversation with him. Now, Bill is now a University of Utah employee, so he cannot comment on transfer portal additions or subtractions until those players have been officially signed and announced by the University of Utah, or the player has left and signed with his new school. But Bill did say that he is hearing that several Ute players that are in the transfer portal right now are rumored to be coming back. Now, Josh Furlong surmised that might mean Isaac Wilson is on his way back to Utah. Porter, let me bring you in on this because we've been talking about, of course, Devin Dampier signs. That was last Thursday or Friday. We did talk about the new Utah quarterback on the program during the end of the week and wondering whether or not what feels to be a natural synergistic fit because his offensive coordinator at New Mexico is now Utah. Devin appears to be slotted in as the starter. Would that affect whether or not any of the other quarterbacks would come back or whether or not other quarterbacks would look at Utah as a potential landing spot? If Isaac ends up coming back, I like that. I like that statement he's making, that he's ready to compete for that job. Are you hearing anything to corroborate what Josh said earlier?
Yeah, well, I think that to corroborate that, it would be just confirming that that's been kind of the process the whole time. Isaac entering the portal was not a, and again, get used to it, football fans. It wasn't a I'm leaving, end of the road. This is our time, and we moved on. It's just, hey, I'm testing the waters of what we can call free agency now. So for Isaac, that there was always an angle, a window, a possibility of him returning to Utah. And in fact, he intimated that it was something he would like to do if things would fall into place. But like you said, not going to step into a starting role. Devin Dampier is looks like the guy for Utah, especially considering who their offensive coordinator is. So for me, that would mean Isaac Wilson is likely your backup, if that. And I think that's a good spot for Isaac Wilson to be in, because I think he has quite a bit of room to grow into what is a Division I quarterback. His progressions, his feel for the speed of the game, all of that has some room before I think he can take reps and be a serviceable QB at this level. Now, if he were to transfer and he wants to play, I would say if he wants to be ready to play, you're going to be looking at a step down to the G5 or the ranks around that. But again, Isaac Wilson back to Utah is very much a possibility, as is a few other players on the roster.
Jalen Glover has announced he is following Dan Mullen to UNLV after floating out a possibility of USC a week ago. So the former Utah running back who started his career with a ton of promise will be playing his college football in Vegas. Utah football got some rough news 5 days ago. Cam Calhoun has entered the transfer portal. Now, the good news there is in 5 days, there's been no official announcement. Now, Cam does not have to announce. The transfer portal stays open until the 28th, and you just have to have your name in it. So we don't know what that means, whether or not Cameron's going to come back here. He's a really talented kid who had a good year at corner, but Utah landed today a transfer cornerback from Texas A&M named Donovan Saunders. And in fact, Utah football themselves just kind of tweeted out that he has officially signed. So this is across the dotted line. These are players that will be coming to play for Utah coming up next year. Now, Josh Furlong, and we discussed the possibility of this with Josh. Obviously, there's a little bit of a hole in the running back room. Now, Utah, of course, essentially you're just trying to fill that room with as much talent as you can and then see who rises at the end of camp and wants that job. But a kid named Wayshawn Parker, who, according to 24/7 Sports, is the number 2 portal running back. So very highly sought after, has 2 visits left before he's going to announce. And according to Brandon Huffman from 24/7 Sports, Utah is on his list, down to the final 2 for one of the best portal running backs in the country. Now, remember, Devin Dampier, number 7 ranked quarterback in the portal, which is good. I mean, for a program like Utah, I think that has to be considered a win. Utah also added to the wide receiver room Creed Whittemore from Mississippi State. 4-star high school recruit. He was a quarterback in high school, like a lot of these young men are before they transition over different positions. Speaking of quarterbacks who transition over to different positions, Porter, I'll bring you in for this. I'm seeing a tweet that Nate Johnson is on the ground here in Salt Lake talking about potentially returning to play for Utah, but not at the quarterback spot. Hell of a athlete Nate is. We saw that. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, obviously a player that we've seen on the ground here at Utah, and there were flashes. Let's be clear. You saw him against Baylor. You saw what Nate Johnson can do with the ball in his hand. And, yeah, Utah's very interested in having him on the field. But with Devin Dampier on the roster, isn't much of a need for him at the quarterback position. Now, if he's on the roster and you have a situation like last year where you're struggling to figure out what you're doing with your quarterback position, well, hey, that's just a plus having a guy that's played quarterback at your school before. But if Nate Johnson is to come here, the goal is to have him play more of a playmaker role and an athlete type rather than the quarterback, which Utah is interested in and it sounds like Nate is as well.
So this is a fluid situation. If you listen to any college football coach, namely James Franklin and Lane Kiffin, over the past 72 hours, they've pointed out the absolute insanity of the transfer portal being open during the season. It's beyond dumb. It's the latest beyond dumb decision by a bunch of dumb people that run an insanely profitable and entertaining product. As we've talked about on the show today, and quite frankly for a number of years, as soon as college football actually gets its ducks in a row, I can't even imagine what sort of massive boom is in for this sport. Once they have competent people in charge that actually try to prepare instead of react when things are clearly dumb. Who is in that conference? Who is at that table, that conference table in the conference room that brought up the idea to keep the portal open while teams are still playing? You got to feel bad for the kids because they're hearing from agents. We heard about that last week. from the Colorado State head coach, while you're trying to prepare to maybe win a national championship for the 12 teams that are still standing, or BYU Colorado Alamo Bowl should be a good game. When you're trying to do that, and then on the side, you have to make sure your players are corralled and not looking to transfer elsewhere. It's beyond dumb. But anyway. Is this Dolly Parton? Who is this? Who are you playing to end the show today on a Monday?
A little Manic Monday. Bangles.
Is it Cindy? Who sings? Is it Cyndi Lauper who sings Manic Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Cyndi Lauper. I guess this is maybe a different version we have on our file.
Of True Colors fame. All right, well, it is 6 o'clock on a Monday. Porter in his bag. Playing a little bump to take you home today on this Monday afternoon. Don't forget the Craig Smith Coaches Show comes your way next. Speaking of that, text Utes right now to 33986. That's Utes to 33986 for your chance to win Utah men's basketball tickets. One entry per show, so you over-aggressive texters, calm down. So text Utes right now to 33986, and we'll send you to see Craig's team coming up. Big 12 play right around the corner. Got to tell you about my friends at Prize Picks, which is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. It's very easy. We'll use Bears-Vikings real quick, the Monday night game tonight, one of the two. Sam Darnold, more or less 250 passing yards, something like that. Caleb Williams, more or less than 1.5 passing TDs. It is very easy. So if you've ever wanted to get involved in trying to make a little money off this stuff, but you don't want to worry about the spread or the over-under or all the terms, you don't need those terms for this. So make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. They call it Picksmas. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game all season long. All right, real quick, before we get out of here, I've told you this. And kids, a little advice for you. Once a year, cancel your debit and credit cards and get new numbers. Therefore, you eliminate all these weird charges. I did that over the weekend. I do it once a year. And it is amazing the hoops you have to jump through if you want to cancel any sort of subscription. Mm-hmm. But if your payment method needs to be updated, you can do it in 0.4 seconds.
This is true.
So I've been dealing with all these things I didn't know I was paying for. And 3 of the subscriptions I've tried to cancel, and you go to a splash page, it's like, oh, it doesn't exist. Well, it's like, what am I supposed to do? All 3 of them, when they found out my card was expired, boom, I could update it in 30 seconds. These people are criminals.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, but that's the MO around here.
Capitalism at its finest. What are you going to do? All right, before we get out of here, it's time for the Craig Smith Coaches Show coming up next. Porter, what comes our way on a Tuesday show?
On a Tuesday edition of the program, we're gonna double up on the NBA Daily Assist time. It's an NBA Daily Assist hour. Tim McMahon, Zach Harper, but no worries. We'll talk some football as well. Dave Fox stops by the program as he does each and every other Tuesday. And then Omar Ruiz of the NFL Network as well. So some college football, some pro football, hoops mixed in as well, and whatever else comes up on Tuesday.
There you go. Craig Smith Coaches Show coming up next. Special thanks to Bill Riley as well as Tom Habershow, Garrett Bowles, and Josh Furlong. For any of the sound you may have missed, website, ESPN700sports.com. Station app, ESPN 700 app Store, Google Play Store. Our podcast is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. If you like what we do, please support us by giving us a rating and a review on your preferred podcast catcher. Say nice things. Give us all the stars. He's Porter. I'm Spence. Have a great Monday evening. We'll talk to you on a Tuesday drive right here on ESPN 700.